Carmona was gracious enough to interview Mrs. Gomez. Let's hear a little more about why she was chosen to be our shining star.
I'm Alicia Gomez, and I am from Anthony. I was raised and born in Anthony and went to Gadsden High School. I then attended New Mexico State University. I started working in GISD in 2001, so this is my 20th year in teaching. I taught second grade for 6 years, and then I taught kindergarten for 12 years, and then I've been in art for 4 years, so total of 20 years. The things I like about teaching at Sunrise the most are, first of all, the drive. I love the drive coming to Sunrise. You see that Sunrise, and I understand why they named it Sunrise. And the caring, compassionate people that we have here. We have wonderful staff, the students, and the community. It is wonderful to work here, and every day I come to work, it makes me cheerful to come to work. The student population at Sunrise, we have about 380 students. I am very fortunate that I teach in a community where the students, they are caring, they're compassionate, they're eager to learn. Each day they come ready and excited to be here. When I think about my favorite art lesson, it's hard to put into words. I love teaching art, and so in every artwork that we do, we embody it, and we like working with different mediums. So the students' goal and my goal is always just to get better at it. And so if we're teaching weaving, we're getting better at it. If we're teaching abstract art, I do like Georgia O'Keeffe, and I especially fond of using art that empowers students. If I had to pick one thing that students had to learn, or I want them to learn all year, I would like for them to use art as a way to express themselves. So to put thought into their art, put joy, alleviate boredom, frustrations, just use art as a medium to express themselves, maybe when they can't do it with words, but it takes them into a different way. And I would like them to know that art has endless possibilities. So just be creative and use art to express yourself. What I would like the GISD community to know about art education is that it is an outlet that allows students to excel. It isn't only in the core classes that the students can do wonderfully. We can find a gifted student that is willing to do it in music and art and other aspects, and it isn't just the core classes that we find those. And so art is important for the students to be creative and put those thoughts and imagination into it. And maybe we'll find the next James Pollock or the next Van Gogh. We don't know what we have, and we have gifted children. We just need to give them that outlet for them to find themselves.
Ms. Gomez is a good art teacher because she lets you do activities, fun activities, and she lets you do a lot of stuff that can make you happy.
Ms. Gomez is a great art teacher because her personality, and she just brings in a good vibe.
She teaches you really great art, and she's really nice. She's a kind person, and she's really funny too.
She's a good art teacher because she makes creative stuff.
Ms. Gomez is a really nice art teacher because she can actually teach you a lot of things, how to do amazing art, and I don't know what else to say. She's really nice.
The students are my inspiration and motivation to stay positive. I want to empower them. I want to make them lifelong learners, and I want them to pursue their dreams. And in order to do that, we need to create a positive environment at school. I'm not the only one that can do it, and I feel like if I can inspire others to stay positive, then we can create a community where our students feel welcome, they want to learn, they can change the future for themselves by making good decisions, and it all starts with one person. I'm privileged that I've been able to work with all students, and I build rapport, and it's wonderful to be walking down the hall and I know a student's name and I know their family, and I've created this rapport with my students and the families and teachers, and it's wonderful, but I miss that connection that you have with one small classroom. So I've found other outlets to be able to give stuff and just make all the students happy in a sense. The first day I came into the art room, I had a huge smile on my face, and I was walking on the ramp of the portable, and I literally felt like I was floating on clouds. I can't explain the feeling. And up to the day, I love coming to work. I love coming to Sunrise. It's just a beautiful community, and I call it home.
Madam President, member of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Sorry. Thank you, Ms.
Gomez,
Williams.
we have something for you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, and Ms. Gomez. Please let us recognize you. Ms. Gomez, thank you so much. We really appreciate you, and I can't tell you, what I heard was this positive message, and please continue that, and thank you so much for the work you do. I appreciate you. Okay, our next item.
Superintendent Dempsey, I apologize. We missed our mission statement. So if I can ask Ms. Rodriguez to please read the mission statement. Sorry about that.
The Gadsden Independent School District will ensure that all students will learn by putting education first. The district will provide quality educational opportunities conducive to learning that will facilitate students' individual goals. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden se compromete a poner en prioridad la educación de cada estudiante. El distrito proporcionará oportunidades educativas de calidad conducentes a un aprendizaje que facilite las metas individuales de los estudiantes.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Before I give it over to you, I would like to make an announcement to our community and to those of you who are watching through our YouTube stream. So last Thursday, we did have a school board meeting. So on Thursday, August 16, 2021, the Gadsden Independent Board of Education met in executive session to evaluate our superintendent, Travis L. Dempsey, and to discuss his contract and salary. All 5 of us were present during executive session, which is the 5 of us you see in front here. So when the board came out of executive session, a motion was made by Board Secretary Jennifer Miramontes to extend Superintendent Dempsey a 3-year contract retroactive to July 1st, 2021, with an additional 1% increase to his current salary. Roll was taken by myself, the board president. All 5 board members voted in favor of the motion. Therefore, the motion passed unanimously. Mr. Travis L. Dempsey accepted and will therefore continue to serve as our superintendent of the Gadsden Independent School District. Congratulations, Superintendent Dempsey. And so I would like to give my colleagues an opportunity right now to, before you go on to your report, sir, if they would like to speak some words. I personally would like to thank you for everything you're doing, and it's very exciting to see the things that will happen in the next 3 years. And so I know you are all about children first, and so thank you. And may God continue blessing you and our district to better and newer things. And so I'm gonna, let me see, Ms. Viramontes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. I too want to congratulations and say thank you for being part of our family. And I think, the 3 years, it seems like people lose superintendents constantly in different districts, and we're lucky to have somebody to have the passion for education and for our students, no matter what side of the mountain we live on. And I look forward to seeing the growth that we have in our district, so thank you.
Vice President Castillo.
I also would like to thank Mr. Dempsey for, number one, accepting, but for all that he's done to the district. I look forward to the future. It's been a while, and future looks bright, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Board Member Claudia Rodriguez.
Well, like my colleagues, I want to thank you, Mr. Dempsey. I believe your great leadership has moved us forward in many ways. There has been some stumbling and some traveling that we have done. But again, with your leadership, I think we're going to accomplish great things. So thank you. Thank you for accepting another 3 years and putting up with the board members as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Board Member Armando Cano.
Mr. Dempsey, congratulations and thank you for being here, okay? As I looked in the El Paso district and Socorro district and further out north in New Mexico, we were far most prepared right when the pandemic hit, and you carried us through. All of our students were prepared, you know, with computers, ready for the computers, ready for online learning. Our teachers did a great job in preparing themselves for this whole year shutdown that we had. I know that everybody's glad to be back, and you deserve it. And I thank you very much, you know, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Okay, Mr. Superintendent Dempsey, you may proceed. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see if our mic's working here a little bit, or I'll try to be loud. With that, I guess how I would maybe, I think each one of you, and I think of us all as a team, and I just want you to know I'm incredibly humbled and honored to serve as the superintendent. I truly believe my job is to serve the communities of Gadsden that you represent. And so as long, you know, us working as a team, I think that united front makes all the difference in the world. And that doesn't mean we don't have struggles. That doesn't mean we don't have difficult patches. But if we stay together and stay focused on students, our kids are just going to reap the benefit. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And I know I speak for our entire leadership team. We are ready to get to work for you. Test. There it is. There we go. Is that yours? That's yours? That is yours. Okay. We'll try that one. I'm humbled by the opportunity, and I truly believe in servant leadership, and I'm ready to go to work for our community. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. On another, a little different note, and I'm very excited about it. I don't mean this jokingly, but last week Saturday, I believe, we were notified of the passing of a longtime administrator in the district prior to me, and I believe it was Mr. C., who was an administrator here at Chaparral Elementary. And so you know, anytime we lose one of our family, you know, I think you know, it shocks us all a little bit sometimes, and I think it's important to pause for a minute, and I'd ask for a moment of silence just to remember Mr. C. Thank you. Did you want to say something about Mr. Simmons?
Yes, I was notified through Tony Hawkes, and some of you here in the community know that Tony Hawkes was the principal at Chaparral Elementary for many, many years. And under her leadership, Mr. Jim C. was her assistant principal. I didn't have the privilege of working under Mr. C. However, my mom did, and there's actually Ms. Williams has, I believe, 3 staff members that work under Mr. C. That would be Irene Mauricio, Sandra Ita, and Ms. Rivera. I failed to remember her first name. But he, and you know, I think I see right now Mr. Cardona, he remembers Mr. C. And a lot of you out there, Dr. Browder remembers Mr. C. And so he was a very, very humble man, but he was a servant leader, just like you mentioned earlier. And what I recall for him is during the time I was pursuing my degree in education. So it was awesome. My mom she worked there as an educational assistant, and always said beautiful things about him. And him and Ms. Hawkes were an awesome team. And so thank you for recognizing him this evening, and later on we'll put there was an article written about him, and if I can ask you to, later on you could post that in our website. But thank you for that moment of silence, and thank you, Mr. C., for everything you did for the community of Chaparral.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Flores. Okay, our first item this evening under superintendent updates and recognitions, we have Ms. Villalobos, who is going to present the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARP.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. This afternoon, what I bring to you is like a little bit of explanation of something that you're going to have today at the consent agenda. The application for the ARP funding is due next week. Next week, we're going to be submitting to the state, and what you're going to be see here is kind of like a summary of the whole application. You have it over there, so you can see it, and I'm going to explain a little bit so that you can understand what this is, what is it that we're going to be applying the money for, and how this is going to work. The American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Program. The first part that they require from all of us in the application, the first thing I need to do, here. It's like, before we were able to put together an application, we needed to have opinions, then people thinking, what do they think that we should be doing with this money? How should we invest it in our communities and our kids? So we went into a meaningfully engaged stakeholder groups. And for this, I'm just giving you like a brief summary here, because for each one of the meetings on the application, we need to submit all the signatures we collected, all the presentations we did, everything. Like this application is going to be total, I guess, like 300 pages or something like that. So this has been time consuming since we have this release, the guidance on this grant, because there's been a lot of us working in this together. So what you can see is like the first meetings that we had, that's what they have on the first slide, the first meetings that we had with the presentations. We did presentations in July and August on Coffee with the Superintendent. We have administrators meetings, deciding, determining, ranking the proposals, determining which ones go, which ones doesn't fit, which goes and aligns to the grant, because there are requirements here. So the schools presented to the teachers, to their staff, to the students on the high schools and middle schools. And there has been different, and there you have kind of like the number of participants that we have. The second page that you have here is like, if you remember, we had a survey on the website, and we invited the community to participate, and these are the results that I wanted to share with you, what the community was thinking. We can see by schools, what schools were, how many people that pertain to that school were doing their opinions on the survey. The second page that you have, is like, we're asking if there were parents, teachers, students, instructional assistants, any other position, or just a community member. There you can see who they were, giving us their opinions. And then you have, on the third page, when we asked them, how would you like to see these ARP funds used, so that we could establish categories for ourselves and see how we're gonna be establishing these categories for the proposals. And that's when you can see the opinions on the people thinking that technology was important, field trips, socio-emotional learning, improvements in the school buildings, the air conditioners, all that stuff. So that's when you can see what we have here for the ARP. Then we having, I don't know what I did, Mr. Snowdy, sorry. Okay, but let me tell you what it is. The next part is the community letters of support. We have a couple of community letters of support, especially with the big proposal that we have, which is the internet connectivity. We have been asking the community for support, and we have organizations like Engage, Success Partnership on Las Cruces, Anthony Rotary Club, the BFW, the Border Industrial Association, and different people providing us letters of support for this initiative for the community that we want to bring with this money. We have also POAs have been collecting forms with the parents and explaining what this initiative is all about. And the members for the veterans from Anthony, they have been helping us collect signatures because they are so strongly supporting us on this project. They think that this is something that is going to be a game-changing for the community on Gadsden, that this proposal is going to bring so much good things for our families and for everybody, that they are going door by door on the communities in Chaparral, in Berino, and all those areas, trying to collect signatures and explaining to the parents if they support us on this initiative so that we can submit all this to the states. All those letters, all these signatures, everything is the first part that I need to submit on this grant. Okay. The second part that we have here is like, the next part is like the proposal selection. How do we create these proposals, or how we did it? The way it works is like after studying the format, because as you know, the federal funds have different formats to submit the applications, which are kind of like not friendly. They're kind of really time-consuming and not friendly, the way the New Mexico makes those formats for us to submit the applications on all the titles. And this one is very particular. So what I did is I created a kind of like a format of proposal selection, share it with all the administrators so that they can pass it on to the principals, to the schools, and to everybody that bring proposals to us. There are things that are needed because everybody says, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And it's great to have opinions and people saying it's what we should be doing. But it's important to remind everybody that there are guidelines that we need to follow. It's not just investing in whatever we want. They're very strict, the way we have to do this proposal, and those funds are not as free as we think they are. I know we are listening on the news all the time, federal funds for everybody because the government is giving away money, so you should be so rich now. You should be doing all these things. And it's not like that. We need to follow the guidelines, and we really need to follow the guidelines from the federal funding. Our requirements are very specific. We selected 38 proposals, and that's what we're submitting to the state next week. And I'm going to go over these 38 proposals so that I can explain to you what they are. We had 54 proposals, and not all of them qualified because there was no way that we could justify under the criteria those proposals. So one of them is, the first thing is they need to address the learning loss narrative, and here this proposal needs to give a real proof and guidance of evidence-based interventions that are going to really support the learning loss narrative. So everything that I'm going to say on this proposal, they say, I'm going to do this, that has to be related to learning loss. We need to back this up with evidence-based. Everything has to be evidence-based. The second part is activities to address the needs of the students, which is related to the students of the needs that can be, the student needs can be academical, social, emotional, mental health, any kind of those needs, but it's very specific that we need to be serving either students from low-income families, students of color, English learners, children with disabilities, students experiencing homelessness, children and youth in foster care, and migratory students. The third part of this grant can be related just to response efforts to COVID, and the parts that are there, you can see how specific they are. The response efforts to COVID. So there are another particular things on this grant. There is like other factors that need to be considered is like this funding is going to be divided in two parts. First, we're going to be receiving only the 2/3 of the whole grant. Once they approve it, if approve the grant, we will not receive this year 2/3 of the part. Like in 1.5 or 2 more years, because they don't know yet when they're going to release the other 1/3 of the part. Knowing how we're going to be receiving these funds, that's why some of the grants we could not, some of the proposals didn't qualify, because we need to be very careful here when it comes to budget, because it's like, for example, and I'm going to give you the example right now, just with the CARES 1, we used it last year, as everybody remember. So we were not allowed to use it until the end of June. So when are we going to be getting that carryover? So right now, we still have $1.5 million on CARES 1 that we haven't been able to use, and we won't be able to use until we have the carryover. New Mexico Pet has no idea when they're going to release that carryover for CARES 1. So seeing how they're handling the money and seeing that we're going to have to, I mean, the way we handle the money is like to be safe, to be careful. So that Ms. Martinez can be happy with us and doesn't complain. We need to be very careful on the proposals. So that was also the limit us again, because we couldn't be selecting proposals that we know they're going to be interfering with the money or they were not going to be ready in the time of this grant. This grant is supposed to be due on September 2024, but actually really is going to be due for us on July 2024. That's when we have to accomplish and spend and encumber all these monies. 20% of this funding needs to be addressed only to learning loss. And the thing is like this ARP funding does not require site-based allocations the way we do with Title I, or distribute the money the way we do with Title I. It's different. They want us to allocate to all the schools, but according to the school's needs. And when it comes to the maintenance of equity requirements, the equity requirements for this grant are very specific. And what they say is like for the schools, we need to distribute however they need, and according to the school's proposals. But what they are asking us on equity, the equity of this fund is like, just make sure that we are not gonna reduce any per student funding, the ones that we have from federal and state funds, and that we are not gonna reduce the number of FTEs. So they want us not to change anything, and that's gonna be keeping that's what they, for this grant, what it means to keep the equity on this funding. And now I would like to go with you a little bit over the proposals. I'm not gonna be saying exactly each one of them, but if you go to this page, the color one, I can show you just like the first big proposal. And what it is here, the first 3 pages, you're gonna see the whole budget, how it's going to be. And after that, you have the explanation of every single one proposal with details so that you know exactly what it is if you have questions about it. And that's the way we're gonna be submitting to the state. So I'm gonna be using some of this information for the grant application. So the first proposal that we have is the one that is the fiber wireless for all GISD students. And this is the one that we have been asking for the letters of support, because this is one proposal for $35 million. And that's the one that is going to be serving the student and community needs and learning loss. That really accomplishes the digital divide. The digital divide on these 3 main parts of the proposals, which is that they have to do either student needs, or they have to be learning loss, or they have to be related to COVID. And the part that is related to COVID, there is a very specific part on the guidance of this grant that says the digital divide is one of the main components for us to spend this money. That's one of the main things that they say that they want us to really cover is the digital divide, because that has been one of the biggest issues that as a nation, we learn that there's a lot of digital divide still in a lot of our populations in the country. So one of the main purposes of this grant is for us to close that digital divide. That proposal will do that. And if you want to read a detailed explanation of this proposal, it's there on the back so that you can see it. It's the first proposal that you have. The broadband ARP proposal is a lot of detail. I know it's like a book. When you have the time, you can read them, or you can call me immediately and I can talk to you and discuss with you any one of these proposals. You can see the other proposals that we have. We have like replenishing the computer systems, building 4 pre-K classrooms here in Chaparral area, outdoor learning areas for the high schools, UV lighting for the cafeterias in all the schools, the HVAC commission so that we can update all of HVAC systems, new playground equipment for all pre-Ks and elementaries that is providing inclusive equipment for the playgrounds for all the pre-Ks and elementaries, replace the water fountains with bottle fillers. We want 2 warehouse delivery trucks so the warehouse has more facility to deliver more things to the school and facilitate, service vans for the HVAC techs, custodial equipment for disinfecting, sanitizing, electrical upgrades, equipment for the HVAC techs, awning for SMP and PPD warehouse, For the student nutrition department is asking for replacing outdated and non-functioning kitchen equipment. We are asking also for a workforce management system for the warehouse so that we can handle the warehouse in a more efficient way. The athletics department is asking for recreational opportunities for all the elementary students to really support with the social emotional learning. For nursing, we are asking for more contract services and more equipment for hearing, vision, blood pressure. For the English language learners, we're asking for TESOL, bilingual endorsements, a program for more rigor in literacy, a testing clerk position. We're asking for digital media equipment so that we can really keep the communication more active and really provide more and better communication to our families. Information system proposal so that we can update our registration online system and update all the system on PowerSchool so that we can really be more effective on that. Special education is asking for contract services to provide our SPED students with all the support that they need. And they are asking us also for more cars so that specialists can really transport from one school to another one. Human resources is asking for updating the system so that it can become a paperless department, very efficient. All the elementaries together are having the same project. All the elementaries, you don't want to see the names of each one of them because it's the same project for all of them. All the elementaries are asking for STEM lab classrooms for their schools. We're asking for more support for create a very strong counseling program. We have a very pilot idea that we want to pilot and see how it works, so we can replicate in other schools, which is going to be a food truck for our culinary departments, for our students. We have more support for the fine arts, for the music, for the art programs, more professional development with REB, tuition reimbursement for retention and recruitment of teachers. On secondary programs, we have tutoring, Jumpstart for the secondary campuses. And we have different projects, as you can see, for example, Gadsden High School for a greenhouse, Gadsden House School. You can see the high schools, the programs that they have here. Outdoor learning system, a cybersecurity lab, varsity bleachers, all that for Gadsden High School. Santa Teresa High School is asking for the warrior wraparound, which is asking for portables to create a program for the students to provide more social services for them. They're asking for music and printing programs, for science tables. DPA is asking for a program to really support fitness equipment and more support, something to support more the social emotional learning of the students. Chaparral High School has more CTE upgrades. Alta Vista Early College, more for physical exercise. Gadsden Middle School, sensorial room and fitness. And Chaparral Middle School, after-school programs for art and music. At the end, you're going to be able, I know it's a lot, but there's the proposals, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. And if you want to sit down with me later, I'll be happy to explain to you this on detail. And we are submitting, after you approve today the budget, Ms. Villarreal, Ms. Martinez, and myself put together the budget already together for this grant, and it's for you today on the consent agenda. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about this. I know it's a lot of information, sorry.
Questions or comments?
Madam President, I just want to make a comment. I think it couldn't be more thorough. Great job, thank you. I think that this probably took a lot of work,
yes,
but it's worth it because we need this. I mean, just from seeing, of course, I'll be reading a lot.
Yes.
But just from what I'm seeing here, there's a lot of programs that I know that I've heard the different campuses that are really in need of that. So
yes.
Thank you for the hard work. I mean, great work.
Yeah, and once we submit the application, which is with much more detail even than this, when I can be able to print the copy, and when they say that it's approved, I'll be happy to bring the whole copy of the whole application for you so that you can see all the minimal details on it. Yeah, it's going to be a book. That's why I'm telling Mr. Dempsey, I feel like I'm writing a book.
I have a question, Madam President. Okay, so once we submit this, based on what we're asking for, or that's based on the number that they said that were allocated, right? Right? What if they come back and say, you know what, I'm only going to give you, less? How do we decide what doesn't get done and what does get done?
Yeah, actually, this is the way it is, the way the understanding with this grant is like they won't give us less, but they're going to say maybe they don't like a project. on music, let's say. Maybe they say, you know what, this one doesn't qualify on this year. Then what we have to do is like, let's say that they're on approved for one project for one school. So what I do is like that fund was already assigned for the school, so we need to change for another project.
Okay.
And so that will give us a flexibility. And that is actually what is happening. For example, with ESSER too, we have been changing, and we can say it's changing, but it's not easy to change, but this is what it has been taking. For example, when we applied for the ESSER 2 application, we had no idea that we wanted to do Edmentum. We had no idea that we wanted to do this online learning because that application was in May. So we had no idea of that. So when we come up with that idea and I say, oh, we don't have it on the application and we can use the ESSER 2 funds to sponsor this Edmentum program, right? So the way we did it is like I have to contact the state and then they need to allow me to access the application because I cannot access the application just because I want to. They need to open it up and close it for you. So I call and say, and I talk to my representative on the state and say, this is what we want to do. I think it's something that we can do. How can we do it? And they say, okay, I'm going to send you the application again. So they allow me to have access to the application. Once they open it up, the application, I have to change it again, and that's how we created. Well, first, we need to make a bar,
Right.
and that's when we come to you because I say, okay, from this money on ESSER, we had to change, and we have to change the way monies were located, and then we have to see how we're going to put this money, what for what. So first, Ms. Villarreal, Ms. Martinez, myself, were very hard on these bars. Believe it, when we do those bars, believe us, it takes us a whole day. Just working on those bars, making all the accounting about adjustments and all that. So once we can make the bar, that's when I start putting the narrative and apply, and then I need to keep constant communication with the state until they approve it, and then you have to approve the bar. So that's how all the changes have been done like that. If we have to come and do changes, it's going to be like that. So we're going to have to come to you all the time and say, we're changing.
We'll see a lot of transfer bars on our consent agenda, and that's just putting the money in the proper place, because we have this allotted, but we don't have it into detailed, like the type of program or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So we may see transfer buys. It doesn't mean that we're taking money from something, it's just that putting it in the right account, right?
Yes, exactly. It's right on the right account, and all this, and what is important maybe to understand is like, the application, what it is like the translation of the budget.
Right.
It's like the interpretation of the numbers, so they go together.
Right.
They have to describe exactly what it goes there.
So even though you have a guideline on here, you may have to use a certain thing, which would maybe transfer within there, right? And you try to be as detailed as you can, but as open as you can, because you have to be able to use it in different ways, right?
Yes.
So I know that the ESSER money, or the money we had before, is it a 2-year? I mean, it has a certain timeline, right? So, and this one has a certain timeline too. It's like 5 years.
This one is until 24.
Right.
ESSER 2 is until 23.
Right. So hence.
And CARES 1 we're supposed to have a carryover that we don't have yet.
Right, because we're waiting for the new year budget line, right? And so it's also, the grant is also reimbursement grant. It's not money up front. It's all based on reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement, so that's why we have to be so careful with these monies.
Like most our money flows through PED, and we have to wait for it to we cover it first straight up, and then they reimburse us. So hence why we need a cash balance, because you got to cover a certain amount of cost because they're not giving it the money.
They're not. It's a reimbursement thing, and it's like how we say in Spanish, no lo jinetean. Which is not right, but that's what's happening. So we have to be very, very careful.
Once this gets approved, or when this gets approved, will this be a timeline set to this then too? Because we have an outline, so then we'll start looking at the timeline as how money comes in, right? Okay, that's what I want. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I do. So I was looking at this real quick, and so I noticed under the page, the number 18, we've got English learners regular literacy, and then line 27, we got secondary programs tutoring, and I guess the point I'm trying to make is I see a lot of social emotional things that I agree with because, as you had stated in a previous meeting, Maslow before Bloom's, that they need to have those basic needs before we as learners can be ready to learn, right? but I guess embedded in here, are there intervention programs for literacy and mathematics?
Oh, yeah.
For example, the tutoring is going to be.
Completely.
So are we
Completely,
purchasing
actually,
the
and
intervention
if I can
program?
interrupt you a little
Yes,
bit, Ms. Salazar, so one of the things for the interventions is like one of the grant gave us a lot of great information about evidence-based tutoring programs that really work. So everything that we're going to be doing with tutoring is going to be evidence-based, and it's going to be using a lot of the information that Mr. Jade is going to be presenting after myself. And based on those results that Mr. Jade is going to be sharing with us and how we decide to go into tutoring, all that, everything is going to be evidence-based, and they are embedded in there. So when I send you the whole application, and once it's approved, and then I can print it, because it's not easy to print. The applications are not easy to print until they approve it and they release it to you. Then I can share it with you so you can see all the minimal details on those, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, so it's not just tutoring, it's also intervention, so
Oh
the
my God,
tutoring
yes.
can also, so
The
the
tutoring is
not-
the name, so it's like, with all these things, that we cannot go into the detail of what
Okay.
kind of tutoring exactly, but it's like, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure,
Yes.
and I keep saying the same thing, but I just want to make sure.
Mhm.
So the tutoring is going to go beyond just helping students finish their classwork and daily work. It's going to actually
Exactly.
target what they need, whether it's mathematics or literacy.
Exactly.
And then
So
I'm seeing,
specifically, it has to be very, very targeted, because really needs to, when we use this money, and let me tell you how this works. When we use this money, they always are contacting, especially Ms. Villarreal, and say, how was this money used? Explain that to me. And then Ms. Villarreal contact our office, and then we have to get like a bunch of stuff like that again, or more papers. Okay, we did this intervention. What was behind this intervention? We had to put all the research base, the structure, how it works, and all that, so we can demonstrate that we're using the money on the way they're supposed to be used.
okay, and then I
Yeah.
guess my follow-up question is, so I understand what you just said, but okay, so I'm not seeing anything for elementary regarding like interventions, tutoring for, or maybe I'm not seeing correctly, but,
Yeah, and the reason you're not seeing it, let me tell you why, because we have a lot for that right now into SR2.
okay, that's okay, okay. And then, let me see.
Yeah, we have a lot of some, there's money assigned just for those things for SR2.
Okay, and then my last question is this like set in stone, or can projects be edited, or once you submit the plan? Because I guess
Once we submit the plan, it's like the way I'm explaining what is happening with SR2, for example. It's like, it's not set in stone. So we send it, it's approved, we have to do that. Okay. We decide, let's say the one program, I don't know, let's say Mr. Hiron decides that one of the projects that he applied is not exactly what the school is needing. So then we're gonna have to apply again. And so I need to contact the state so that I can modify the grant, and I change it, and then we need to change the budget, the bar, has to come for approval, and then we can change it. So things can be modified, and also there's always these monies, they're not always precise, there's always these carryovers. And when we have the money from carryovers, that's when we can decide on new and different projects.
Okay, and then all of this, just one last question is, all of this is based a lot on data, correct? And that's why I was asking is it allowed to change? Because then when we're looking closer now at data, you know, that we are making decisions based on the needs of the kids.
Based on the result,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, thank you.
Madam President, I'm sorry, I have
Go
one
ahead.
more question. On number 2, we have the replacing of PCs. With this money, is there any way that we can create a program to recycle what we currently have, or what is that? Can that even be utilized? Number 2.
Oh, is that
responsible
replacing
for-
replacing some laptops, some computers that need already to be replaced?
Right.
So like some administrators' laptops, and you have all the explanation here.
No, but what I'm
But
saying
it's
is
what it
that,
is.
is
We
there?
recycle the old
Right, to
computers?
the ones that we currently have? I mean, there's going to be a lot of ones that won't be used anymore, right? Because they're going to
Yes.
become obsolete. So do we have a program or something in place to start
To
working on
recycle?
that?
No, I don't. That's a great recommendation.
Madam President, board members,
don't know recycling
recycling technology is a challenge. And it definitely is something we're working on, but quite frankly, we right now have a lot of aged technology that really isn't usable at this point. And so We usually contract out to help get that taken care of. Sometimes it's in auctions, that's an example, but you have to prepare that equipment before you get to those auctions, and that takes a little time. So I guess to answer your question is replenishment cycles and disposal is all part of the process. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Villalobos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Villalobos. Madam President, board members, the group took me back a little bit with your first statement, and so I skipped something that I think is really important and a celebration I think all of us might be aware of. This week I was officially notified that Mesquite Elementary would be recognized as Gadsden's next Blue Ribbon School, one of 3 schools, only 3 in New Mexico. It's the highest award that is given by the U.S. Department of Education, and Ms. Savaggio, I think it definitely deserves a round of applause, and thank you. I believe if you mark on your calendars Friday, October 8th, we're going to have a little community celebration and get an opportunity to recognize our community for that hard work and that staff. Okay, thank you. Our next item is our beginning of the year benchmark data, and Mr. Duggan is going to help us with this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. I wanted to present a little bit. We've talked previously in meetings and things a little bit about the achievement trends and things. And we want to be very transparent about our achievement data across all of the schools. And so I'm going to present to you tonight the achievement data for grades K through 8. This is called the beginning of the year or the benchmark window. And what this basically shows in terms of education is this is our starting point. So I want to stress that this is the starting point. We hope to see a lot of growth through the year. And then at the end of the year, I'd like to be able to look back at this and show a little bit of how much of a difference that we've made, all right? So if we could move to the next slide. Oh, I have the, oh, there you go. Looking at our background, again, the data sets that are included in this beginning of the year window are the iStation assessment. This is used to evaluate, so there's something called the New Mexico dashboard score. You probably remember a few years ago there was the report card. The dashboard score has replaced that, and it gives us a composite of how all of the schools are rated. The achievement side of it, there are many factors that go into the dashboard, but the education factors or the achievement factors that go into those scores come from each of, there's different tests for different grades. So in the iStation for reading is used to evaluate grades K through 2, though you will see data that includes from iStation K through 6 on this, but it is broken down by grade level so we could see how grades K through 2 rate. The window for that test is the performance of our students between August 1st and August 31st. For iReady, that is the state assessment to evaluate math, and that's grades K through 2. That data is also captured during August 1st through the 31st. And then there is something called the interim measure of student success and achievement. This comes out in 3 parts. So it's called the interim for the first 2 parts, which is the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and then at the end of the year, it'll just be called the New Mexico measure of student success and achievement, okay? And that is used to evaluate grades 3 through 8, and it comes in 3 portions, which are reading, language usage, and math. So the window's a little bit different. It opens on August 16th and extends through September 16th. This data set that I'm going to present tonight does not include our 5 high schools, and the reason why we've left that out is because there really is no benchmark window for high schools, but I've also presented previously on high school achievement, focusing on our AP scores, our SAT scores, and our ACT scores. Okay. So, looking at, starting with our iStation reading, if I could explain the chart to you just a little bit, our areas starting at level 1, those are the areas of most critical need. That means that portion of our students have high critical need, or as Ms. Flores had mentioned earlier, intervention at a highest level of intervention. And then going from there, level 1 and level 2 is a little bit higher achievement. On the bottom of the scale, the green areas, level 4 and level 5, that's where we want our students to be on this one. So as you'll see from this shows kindergarten through 3rd grade, and the trends basically indicate about 75% of our kids in grades K through 2 especially need a high level of intervention, okay? And we have very low levels of proficiency in this side. So iStation is available through a progress monitoring tool through 4th through 6th grade. So you do see some positive trends. One thing I would note from our school district's perspective is typically you do see there being more students in the green areas as they get older. So it is a trend that you see a lot of students who are in critical need when they enter kindergarten, 1st grade. And then you do see this is a trend across all of the school systems and the feeder patterns that you see as they progress through all the way up through 12th grade, you see higher levels of proficiency. So, but again, in grades 4 through 6, it drops to about 60% of our overall kids who are in need of some level of intervention, critical intervention, or some level of intervention. For iReady Math, it doesn't, unfortunately, our report does not break it down by grade level, but this shows our portion of students who were captured in the snapshot of August. And you see the same colors on this line graph. Again, you see about 50% of our kids are in the red level or in need of critical intervention. And then 45% of our kids are classified as 1 grade level or below the target. And so we see about 5% of our kids that are on grade level or above, and then, 4% that are on grade level, 1% that are above the target. So that's for grades K through 2 is what I would say. Those are the snapshots that the state looks at for grades K through 2. For the interim or the IMASA assessment, these are grades 3 through 8. They provide a lot more detailed report. And so we were able to break this down by feeder pattern. So you'll see the schools that are associated with each feeder, and then I also included those on the slides as well. So you'll see, but there are 6 schools that are in the ST feeder pattern. There are 8 schools in the Gadsden feeder pattern, and then there are 5 schools that are part of the Chaparral feeder pattern. Okay, so starting with our Santa Teresa feeder pattern, grades 3 through 6, and you'll see the schools listed above: STE or Santa Teresa Elementary, Desert View Elementary, Salem Park Elementary, La Union Elementary, and Riverside Elementary. So these serve the grades 3 through 6. You'll see their achievement scores in orange. You'll see the district average in pink, and you will see the state average in green. And so the key points of this one is, especially in reading, the ST feeder patterns, doing a little bit above the average of the district and also the average of the state. Though I would say outside of grade 3, they're kind of in the same trend line, okay, and same area. Looking at our Gadsden feeder pattern, you have in yellow and then again in pink is the district and green is the state. So out of our Gadsden feeder pattern, and those schools are listed up at the top, you see a little bit below in reading as far as the district average and a little bit below the state average in most grades. Okay, and then a little bit, but again, I always say, if it's like 1 or 2 points here or there, it's really kind of in line, because that's a very small number of students that sways the numbers one way or another. So you really want to pay attention to, I think, to really make a huge determination. It's when there's a difference of about 5 or 10% of the kids that are out of line. Okay. So our chaparral feeder pattern, in this one, you see our chaparral feeder pattern is in blue, and then again, our district is in pink, and the state is in green. So in this area, you start to see some trends of lower achievement, unfortunately, and I think it's something that there are a lot of factors that lead to this level, but I think there are things that we're doing internally to address these. So broken out by middle schools, so the previous one showed the elementaries together. This one shows all 3 middle schools together. You know, it's not quite as many schools that are listed in, not as many grades, so we're able to fit a little bit more bars on the graph so that we can see. But again, you see the same type of pattern. The ST feeder pattern scores pretty well in comparison to the state. The Gadsden feeder pattern in general stays right around the state line, maybe a little bit below or a little bit higher in certain grades. And then the chaparral feeder pattern is below the state average. So our next category is language usage. So a little bit different. The first one was reading. It was much more related to comprehension. This one is more related to writing and expression, some of these things. So you see the ST feeder pattern again, you know, in some areas above the state, and then in a couple grades, you know, either at the state line or a little bit below it. With our Gadsden feeder pattern, you see, again, right around the state line in almost everything other than grade 5, where you see a little bit lower achievement, lower level of achievement. And then in our chaparral feeder pattern, you know, you do see a similar trend to what we saw in the other areas, except for I would recognize that in this area, you do see in grades 5 and 6, you know, a boost in some of those achievement scores out of our chaparral feeder pattern. So language usage in the middle school kind of stays in the same trend. So our last category would be our math category. So I will say this. The state as a whole also took a you know, huge turn down below, and so this is very difficult data probably to go over, but it shows a great area of need, and I think it's one that we'll definitely be able to show improvements on. I share this with the principals, and I always tell them I'm an optimistic person, so when we look at these numbers, it gets me kind of excited because it's going to be easy to measure the difference we're going to make with our kids going forward in the middle of the year and the end of the year side of it. But in the ST feeder pattern, here you see the trend of where the state is, and you'll notice that our district average across is pretty low, and then in these areas we see very small levels of being on target. So a lot of need. Critical need in these areas. That's in our ST feeder pattern. In the Gadsden feeder pattern, you see a little bit of achievement in the 5th and 6th grade side of it, but again at the lower levels, really lacking a lot of the math skills. And in the chaparral feeder pattern, kind of a similar trend, especially 3rd and 4th grade. We see these low levels of achievement, a little bit higher in 5th and 6th grade. So at our middle school level, I would say that there are a couple of positive trends here. You know, I mean, we do have a lot of growth so that we can make in these areas. But again, GMS in 7th grade scored a little bit higher than the state, and also STMS in 8th grade scored a little bit higher than the state. So actually much higher than the state. So I think that we can take some positives out of that and understand that we will make growth going forward. So a couple of conclusions that I gave out to everybody, which is I think it's pretty clear the pandemic has had a significant impact on all of our overall achievement. We saw that trend across the state. There was an article today in the Sun News talking about the drops in achievement that were observed across the state. I think our most significant needs are in grades K through 2. While all of our grades are at some level of need, our grades K through 2, I would say those students have been pretty significantly impacted by the pandemic because their school years have basically been shortened or they have been altered. And so those kids, one of the reasons why I would say there's a lot of levels of learning that needs to be done, kind of like what we had talked about before, from Maslow's and socialization and things like that are done in the grades of K through 2, and they're a little bit behind as they've come back to school, and they're learning those things now, but that's probably going to continue to impact their achievement through the years. So it's something that we're really trying to do a lot of things at once to get these kids caught up. As we can see, math is an area of growth that we can take, that we really need to focus on. I would say out of the 3 that we presented, the reading side of it, the language usage side of it, and then the math side of it, our reading scores were pretty positive considering all the factors. We were right around the state level. I think we have areas to grow. But again, I think that there's some good solid foundation in our reading areas. And then anecdotally, I will say this, I don't have any data or anything to support it other than I'm just drawing conclusions, going through this with our test coordinator, Mr. Constant, who I should compliment on he was the one who was able to go through each of the feeder patterns and break it out that way. But as I went over this with Mr. Constant, I would say the data, when it opened, especially in the IMASA level, it opened on August 16th, and we had several schools start it, and we didn't see any proficiency, right? And then as we got into September, we started to see numbers of proficient. And I got really excited. I might be reading too much into it, but I was saying, this is our proficiency grade scale. And this is starting to show because it's bringing out those standards, and it's making it conscious and visible to the students of what they're going to be tested on, what they need to know for some of these achievements. And so I was very excited. That's again where I'm very positive, and I think will make a huge difference as we go and progress through the different windows and we'll see a lot of increased proficiency. Okay, so that's just my prediction for it. So our next steps, we just want to give you a little bit of update on how we're trying to address these numbers. So the state has the state has provided us with a framework for addressing some of the students, which is called the multi-layered system of support. Or you'll hear me use this acronym sometimes. It's called the MLSS. Okay, and this is really how do we support our students in need. So one of the things that I would point out is clearly 100% of our students are in need in some way, right? So we have to move away a little bit from the idea that we're going to be able to pull them from the regular ed classroom and put them on a program that's going to get them extra skills or extra time or anything like that. All of the things that we do need to be geared towards addressing the need of all 100% of our students, okay? So that's what our MLSS program is. And I can always provide more examples and things, but we're meeting each of the 7 core components of the MLSS program. So hopefully we can use a systemic approach to improve these numbers. We meet monthly with the public education department, and then we also have an MLSS coach that's provided by the public education department, and I have to meet with her bi-weekly. And we go over different strategies and things that we're trying to do systemically to improve our schools. one of the things that she pointed out in my first conversation with her, she had worked with us last year. She monitored 4 schools as a pilot, so she was familiar with our district. And I believe she's a former employee of the district. Her name is Linda Hale. But I did some discussions about some of the things that we were doing, and she was highly complimentary of our proficiency grading system. She felt like that was something that we needed to do the targeted interventions for our kids. We would, like she says all the time, what do we want them to learn? And how do we know whether they're learning it? And then what are we going to do if they don't learn it, right? And she felt that our proficiency grading system will give us an evaluation system that's standards-based, that we know what we want them to learn, that we know what they are learning, and then also that we know the level that they need, the level of need that they have to get better, and we can use that so that if they don't learn it, we can give them multiple opportunities to succeed. So she felt like that was really something that would move our district forward. The other thing that I wanted to stress is, as part of our MLSS plan, is the PLC structure. So the PLC structure, for those who aren't familiar with the education terms, is what we call professional learning communities. This is where our teachers meet, they plan, they plan lessons together, they talk about students. And so using a lot of the data from these systems, making it more available to teachers, and them to start discussing, the standards and what students need extra help on each of the standard. We're going to embed that in the school day. So it's going to be a little bit of a revision. Those meetings are currently taking place, but they're not necessarily taking place with this level of focus and this level and the targeted areas that we're doing. So so that's one of the changes we're going to make. And then finally, using that proficiency grading system, I would break it down this way. I had talked about critical need, and then just students who need like more targeted interventions. So it breaks it out to where students who are at critical need, we need to monitor them weekly or bi-weekly, right, twice a month, because we can't let them get any further behind. And so the only way to do that really is either we can do it one of 2 ways. We can use the assignments that we have, align them to standards, and assess their proficiency, or we can test them and retest them and test them. And I feel like, as I've explained today, we have too many tests already, right? So we need to find a way to make our curriculum and our classrooms, our Layer 1 structures a little bit more effective. And so that's going to help us progress monitor weekly and bi-weekly for those students who were levels 1 and 2 in that critical need. And then for the students who are just below the target, we need to monitor them monthly and get an idea of how they're doing. If we can do this properly with our proficiency grading system, I think that we can come back in between the windows where we can actually predict what our achievement is going to be. And I think that'll be a big celebration, because right now we're looking at the numbers after they took place. So there's not much we can do about them when the window's closed. But if we can look at these numbers ahead of the window opening, make some predictions, we can really truly evaluate our system and make improvements that are going to benefit our kids. So that is all I have for you tonight. I know that there's a lot to process, but I'm available for any questions or anything.
Questions, comments, or concerns? I do.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, Superintendent Dempsey, so I am so grateful. I mean, I really applaud Mesquite Elementary for their accomplishments. At one point, it was Anthony Elementary. I do see STE feeder pattern being the highest in Gadsden. And community of Chaparral, this is not going to be the case anymore. We are going to improve. And I ask you that you hold teachers accountable, administrators accountable, Chaparral community that's listening. And with that being said, are we, Superintendent Dempsey, are we still working in silos? Or are we going to have schools that are receiving blue ribbon, that are doing outstanding, sharing and collaborating with one another? because we're in this together. There are children. I don't want to see pockets of success just on the other side of the mountain. Chaparral deserves also to be up there.
Madam President, board members, thank you for the comment. Let me emphasize, and I think Mr. Duggan and Ms. Hernandez, our Chief Academic Officer, would agree with this. There is no question this is a journey. This is not something you will fix overnight. And to your point, we are going to have to work together and seek opportunities to share best practices. And it'll be incremental. So my hope is you're going to see those little changes over time that will gradually result in bigger change. So we've got to pay attention to the details and share those very best practices in order to make those strides. Ms. Hernandez, do you want to add anything?
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dempsey. Madam President, yes, we are working together with our schools in different aspects. For example, we're starting our curriculum reviews at the elementary levels, and so we've asked the principal on that campus is not part of that curriculum review. Other principals from other campuses are going either across the mountain or those pieces. And you know, I definitely agree that we do need to hold ourselves accountable as well as central office, our administrators, and our teachers. But I would also like to add the other layer of our parents. Our parents need to be very active also in our schools and in our coffees with the principal. And, you know, and in order to make that change, we need to work as a team as well, right? And we can always, one of the things I like about this board and I love about our administrators and our staff is that we need to agree to disagree, because that's the way we grow, right? We may not like some things, and we may not look forward to certain things, but I think that at some level, everybody needs to know that we are all on the same team. And you saw some of the scores, our math scores. You know, we're hovering around the state with the reading and all that, but 30% is not good. And we actually did it by feeder pattern, so just a reminder that every school has individual scores, right? And so some schools are lower than others. But I don't think that this is the beginning of the year piece, and so I know that it's been a struggle with our proficiency grading piece. It's just a different way of thinking, but we really need to raise the expectations for our students, because as you know, I mean, I've been an administrator at different levels and different campuses, but the potential for the students is there. I mean, I was the principal at Chaparral Middle School. Our MESA team are national champions. We have beat some of the most funded, more affluent schools in the state, in the nation. And so when we lower that standard and the expectation, kids will, you know, if we raise it, the kids will rise to those pieces. But I think that one of the challenges has been is really working as a team, because I agree with Ms. Salazar Flores, for a long time we have been in silos. And so that's part of the piece that we're trying to change, that culture. And so just for that, yes, we are working together as a team. I think technology, like you mentioned I think it was last board meeting or in our meeting on Saturday, we have so many opportunities to meet with each other. We're able to get on Zoom, on Google, on, you know, three-way calls, all this stuff. So, yes. So, thank you. Any questions for me? Yes.
Well, maybe for the both of you, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay, so so I saw if you can back up the slide to where, like, your plan to improve.
Yes.
So I think it was the last slide. First next steps.
Okay, Jed, you're going to have to read it because I don't have my glasses. I can't see.
Okay, so there, I don't want to tell you what to do, but just a suggestion. Is there a place there regarding, I guess, do we still call SAT here in our district? Or has that been, I know MLSS, I know it, but are we still calling it, like when we bring a child to, what are we calling, to the MLSS meeting, or is it SAT? Or
So I'll let Jed answer that, but because the MLSS piece, and remember in the past it was Tier 1, Tier 2, yes, Tier 3, and Tier 3 was usually our special education, yes, piece, but now it's Layer 1, Layer 2, Layer 3, and then SAT.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Okay.
So this is a great question. The SAT team, student assistance team, is still in place.
Okay.
So this has been a little bit of a change and redefinition at the state level. We're bringing up the RTI process, or response to intervention. Previously, the system was where a student, it labeled instruction, the regular ed classroom, was considered to be tier 1. To move a student into SAT, you had to file a SAT referral form, and then they would go into what was called tier 2. So these would be some of those interventions which were pull out and things like that, which we have multiple programs based around in this in the district, and the whole state has that, right? And then if a student didn't succeed after 4 to 6 weeks in that, you could then refer them to the special ed, right? And then there would be somebody that came in and evaluated, the SAT team looked at that data, and then they would ultimately make a referral, and then a DIAG would come in and test the student for special ed, and then that was labeled tier 3, okay? So that was the old system. That was the old system. The MLSS system basically says all of these things, we can't be waiting 4 to 6 weeks for students to be failing and navigating through the process. So our SAT program is still in place. There are now 5 components, and I don't have, unfortunately, all of them off the top of my head, but they are, if there is an obvious disability is the main one. If there are behavior incidences for the students, if there are attendance issues with the student, and I think the other ones are SEL factors, right? And if any of those are observable, we refer them to the SAT team, and then the SAT team can make a decision. So there's no time frame that's associated with that. So as Mr. Hernandez said, that process can take place immediately. And then the SAT team can assign interventions as needed. If it's a disability, we need to make sure they get an evaluation done so that they can get the proper help that they need. If it is something that is chronic absenteeism, and I know Ms. Villalobos will, and I'll probably help her also with this on some attendance rates and things like that in our attendance plans in future board meetings to address some of those things. So I would say in a way the SAT team has different roles now, and it's a much more efficient process.
Okay, so my question is still, well, I didn't ask my question, but thank you for clarifying that. So there's still a SAT chair, and so now is there an MLSS chair? So what I'm, I guess, leading to is if there is an MLSS chair, is this individual supporting or providing support, or is there a plan so that our teachers are aware of, okay, level 1 MLSS in the areas, and so I'm gonna, since tonight's presentation was honing in on mathematics and literacy, okay, this is what we should be seeing on a daily basis in the classrooms that you're giving to everybody before you go to level 2, and then what are we using to assess them? I guess it's the ISIP and the iStation, and then when we move to level 2, what should we be seeing, because that's still in the regular education classroom, and what are we using to progress monitor? And then also, same thing, when we go to level 3, what data, what screeners, assessments are we using for literacy and math in order to meet their needs? And then the other thing was special education kids are already at a level 3, and you know, are our teachers making sure that, what I'm gonna call red, whoever's in red, you know, we're not assuming, oh, they already have special education services, but they're really looking at the data, because those kids still deserve to get intervention. But then the ones that are receiving special education services, are those population of kids also getting intervention beyond just helping them with their daily work and homework?
Yeah, fantastic question. So I would explain it this way, and so to go back to the first part of it, I would say this. Currently, this is a brand new process, so we haven't had any guidance in terms of how to roll out our MLSS plan other than the 2 point of contact meetings that I've attended. And so, and the one meeting I've had with our MLSS coach, right? But I would say this, I am currently the MLSS chair. And so that is my role. The schools don't necessarily have them because we haven't been given guidance to do that at the school level. But we've worked with the principals a little bit on that, on this process, and a little bit on our plan. And I'd be happy to present at a future time in terms of what our MLS structure looks like within all of the schools, the guidance that we've provided to all of them. So the second part of that question, you're absolutely right. So I would say this: our special ed students and our regular ed students and our gifted students and any students, they all should have access to Layer 1. Because the most important thing for us to improve all of our numbers is to have high quality instruction across all classrooms, right? And so regardless of the students that are in there, high quality instruction is the biggest factor in improving student achievement. And so, so I think that all of our students should have access to some level of Layer 1. Layer 1 would be our high quality instruction. And yes, there are guides that we have that we provided to all of the principals and to the specialists as far as in Layer 1, if you were to go into the classrooms, this is what you should see taking place. And then we've also implemented a structure with our principals that is walkthrough based. And so the principals are learning how to walk into the classroom and look for certain factors that are indicators of high quality instruction. And then we're going to report that back to our teachers. So that PLC structure that I talked about, that student data, some of these things are going to be components of the professional learning communities, where we're giving these to the teachers and we're saying, this is what we're seeing, these factors that we're seeing. And I'll use an example. We've already conducted our first round of walkthroughs. One trend that we've seen is, and it goes back to that language usage side of it, is we don't see as many trends of our students speaking, right? There is dialogue going on within the class. There is where teachers are asking questions of the students, and the students are answering, but there's not as much student-to-student interaction. There's not as much students generating thoughts and using the critical components of language composition. And so that's a trend that we're going to work with our teachers to hopefully correct and build into the classroom. Okay, so that's for Layer 1. Now, Layer 2 is heavily dependent on the progress monitoring. So again, there's a couple ways that we can do this, but our system is designed through proficiency grading for us to be able to progress monitor. So this would be able to provide opportunities for students. If we look at a student and we can assess them on the standard through our classroom assignments, we can look at it and then build in components where we scaffold learning. So if they are below the target, we can come back to that target and assess them later, a week later, 2 weeks later, multiple times throughout, so that ultimately we can build them up to the target that they need to be on. Okay, so that's Layer 2, and those are what are called targeted interventions. Layer 3 is something a little bit different than what it was previously. Okay. And so these are the students that need more help than just the classroom. So they're usually attendance factors. This is where our federal program social workers come in, or on the special ed side, our special ed social workers are working with those students. And they're usually working on different factors, behavior things, a lot of different components that are impacting their classroom performance.
Okay, and I think I have 2 more questions. So my next question is, so does GISD have what I'm going to call content specialists in English language arts and in mathematics? How many are there? And how are they servicing? Because also, while I'm saying yes, administrators, I'm saying parents, yes, parents have to be accountable. So parents, you've got to be accountable, okay? And then when I said hold your principals and your teachers, yes, and now principals, I'm going to support you. Okay, who is supporting our principals with ELA and math content specialists? And what I mean by that is they're the experts that hopefully we've hired so that they can come and either I guess, those ELA or whatever, come to our campuses to support our teachers. And what I mean by support is, and as a teacher myself, sometimes it gets to the point where you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're doing the best that you can, and you're like, I need more resources, but do we, are those individuals coming to our schools to help so that when the teacher, so when you present the data, okay, there's the data, but what can I do different in my instructional practices? Is there resources? And then, because I know you're going to answer this, I think a while back I had asked you if we are a district that, I'm not sure through the Circle grant or some grant, we were showing our teachers core, the science of reading. And if we are or not, because that book is a real thick book, and that's a source where teachers can go get activities to meet the individual needs of the kids.
Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dempsey. So we do offer the content area specialist at the secondary level, and right now we have the language arts, ELA, we have our math specialist, district specialist, and we have a social studies district specialist. We currently do not have a science specialist. We haven't posted that position. We've been trying to figure out how we're going to do this piece. We lost our person. The elementaries have a district literacy specialist, Ms. Nettie, and then Mr. Salas is our math, and then Ms. Cumplido is kind of our catch-all. She does science, and she's been doing Literary Festival. She supports the other two. So the role of our district specialist is really to support our instructional coaches. We as a district are very fortunate because we have a coach in every campus. We're short one, but I believe we interviewed today. So they're pulled and they're provided whatever support they may need. We also have bilingual specialists that support the campuses. And then we also have specialists in the special ed department that support their departments. Now, our district specialists do go down to the campuses with some of the instructional coaches, depending on what they're working on or what kind of support they need, and we'll sit with them in PLCs if they need it and all those pieces. Now, the Circle grant did not do, we do not have the science, what their funding is, oh my God, I'm trying to think of all the things that we fund through that. It's mostly the literacy piece, like chapter books, but it's a very complicated grant and is very demanding in some aspects of what it's been asking for, and not all schools participate in it. And so it's fortunate that you said this piece, because as we look through the Marzano piece, the science of reading is part of that. And so that will be a resource that is going to be provided to our staff. But yes, we do have the district specialists who support our coaches. And so that's one of the pieces that we've been working on. I know Mr. Araujo has been meeting with them. I'm going to say last Friday, I don't know if they're going to meet tomorrow, but they meet at least twice. Our specialists are always on the campus when they're asked to be. Sometimes there's specific trainings that they're asked for. Our principals will request our district specialist if needed. So yes, they do support the campus levels.
Okay. And then as far as in the elementary schools, so iStation is what we use. Help me out.
iStation for reading and iReady for math.
Okay, and so then what is, I stepped out, so ISEP is how we assess iStation?
The ISEP, yes.
Okay, so my question is,
Did I say that?
so it's my understanding that if, based on the scores of, at the elementary level of our students, then the teacher is provided through iStation intervention or activities to meet the needs of the kids. So here's my question. Are all our campuses using that, or are the schools that are excelling using something else? Is it a requirement, or what else are they doing to excel?
I think that there's a lot of factors. I know that I know Ms. Silvaggio and Mr. Reyes are here, but a lot of the schools that are excelling are really using the data piece and the professional learning community. So they're sitting with their staff, principals. If I'm misspeaking about anything, please correct me. They're sitting with the staff in the professional learning communities. They're looking at the data. They're looking at student work. A prime example here is if you walk out to the lobby. There's an assignment, which I was admiring earlier today. It has the 6th grade standard, and then it has exemplary work. And so you can see that we're targeting standards, we're targeting the student work, and so that's what I've seen in successful schools. You see things like that at Desert View, you see them at Mesquite, you see them at North Valley, you're seeing them in the middle school. One of the challenges with middle schools is because there's so many feeders coming in, right? And so you can have high-performing schools, and when we mix them with schools that aren't, it's a challenge because of the numbers. So in my experience and in this position, that's one of the things we're trying to go to, is to have that solid time for professional learning and bringing in the evidence, the student work, the standard, the working on the rubrics if we need to, working on what's good practice in our classrooms.
No, I appreciate your comments. I'm not sure that you answered my question. My
Okay,
question
I'm
was,
sorry.
are our excelling schools strictly using iStation interventions, or are they, or so I get, are they or not? Are we as a district are they just supposed to use that, or can they use other programs, and are there other intervention programs? Because what I was asking superintendent is, do we have data as far as the effectiveness of the iStation interventions? A long time ago, I taught, I don't know what elementary, and so I remember that there was, when I used to do iStation, there was activities, and so I did ask my principal, you know what, I'm not sure that these are meeting the needs of my kids, so I'm going to use something else. I was allowed to. That's my question.
Okay.
Are these excelling schools just using iStation, or what are they using?
That's different. So,
That's different.
So I cannot answer that question right now directly because, like I said, we just started the iStation piece, so we haven't dug into that data, but definitely I will work with the campuses to bring that back to us. You're correct, and iStation has been kind of revamped. It has every intervention in there. You know, it'll give you the interventions. It provides a framework for everything is there for them, like you're saying. So I will sit with our principals, and I do know that they may be supplementing pieces as long as we are doing standards-based supplements, right? As long as we're meeting what we need to do. But I don't have that information, Madam President, but I will make sure that we sit, and I'll let you know how we do. Okay?
No, and the reason I'm asking is because it would be interesting to know. And the other thing is, I know, you actually answered a question earlier, as I was going to ask, are our administrators doing walkthroughs? Because it's in those walkthroughs, and even, when you're trying to help a kid, whatever level he's in, holding my colleagues and myself accountable, hey, where's your data? What are you using? And also, you know what, if giving them the opportunity, I think we're open to, if treating them as also as professionals, that if this is not what's needed, getting the resource for them so that they can be successful in the end, our kids can be successful.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dempsey, and I'm glad you actually said that, Ms. Salazar Flores, because that is one of the things that, as I got this position, is first we need to figure out what everybody's doing and what is working or what isn't, right? Because if we do have campuses that are doing something different and it's working, then I think that campus should be allowed to show that our students are moving and growing, right? Because the goal for us is for our kids to move. But then we also might have campuses who aren't doing what we're asking. And so we've spent a lot of money on one of the things we're trying to change is we're very program-driven at one time, and we need to be standards-driven, right? And so right now, in this new transition is we're trying to align or see what everybody is doing. And then as we start seeing every campus and looking at our data and pulling those pieces, that's why when we're doing these curriculum reviews, and I think that the board should know about this piece, is our curriculum reviews will identify what every school is doing. They're interviewing teachers, they're interviewing parents, they're interviewing staff, they're interviewing administrators, they're interviewing central office. And so once we get that whole report, I'm going to be very happy to share it with you in regards to our campuses. And it's going to show us our trends and show us what we're actually doing as a district. Because if we're all doing different things, like I'm just thinking we have 4 blue ribbon schools now. Wow, what an accomplishment for us, right? We have Desert View, Santa Teresa Elementary, and Anthony Elementary, and now Mesquite. So what are those trends that they're doing, right? Ms. Salvaggio, one of the things she does do, and I know, and she's shared with a lot of her colleagues, is her data folder piece, right? And so there's little things, like you said, we're starting to share it so that we are having pockets of excellence, because we should have more blue ribbon schools, right? Our kids are very capable. And I like you, Ms. Salazar, Madam President, my heart is over here. I had Chaparral Middle School. I want one of our schools to be blue ribbon on this side, right? Why not? And so I think that that's the goal, to have more. I mean, to have 1 of 3 in the state is a big accomplishment. Even though they put Mesquite on there, Mesquite instead of Gadsden, I don't know if you guys saw that on the webpage, but I'm just saying. So I will look at that piece, but I will share the curriculum reviews with you all so that we can start figuring out what programs we are going to eliminate and what programs we're going to strengthen, and so there. Okay?
Okay. No, I thank you, and I remind the public and myself, what does SREB stand for?
Southern Educational Regional Board. And so they're our contract company in regards to instructional practices. So they help us strengthen the systems and processes on that piece. And then when we're going to bring Marzano in, we'll be more on the proficiency, on the structure, on the actual academic piece. And SREB also supports us in that piece, but it gives us kind of like a real look at where our systems and processes are lacking or strengthened, or how we're going to, work on some pieces as a district. And so the elementaries have never had one before. Our high schools had about 10 years ago. And so that'll help us really align. Less is more, right? We've got to be able to teach a solid curriculum and see that our kids are moving, because sometimes we have too many things going, and the teachers are overwhelmed, and our administrators are overwhelmed. The state keeps throwing stuff at us, and just earlier today we were requiring evaluations, and now they've moved them to January, when we've been pushing the principals to finish them before we go on break.
Okay,
And
before I pass it on to my colleague, Ms. Viramontes, I just wanted to quickly help you out by to remind our parents that are watching, that are in the audience or that are watching, you've been getting remind messages on your phone that there is a survey that needs to be filled out as part of the SREB. Please fill it out. So, un anuncio para los papás que están escuchando en nuestro YouTube y los que están en la audiencia. Les recuerdo que el distrito está mandándole textos por medio de Remind, y les estoy urgiendo de que por favor llenen la encuesta, porque es un proceso para mejorar no nomás las escuelas aquí en Chaparral, pero todas nuestras escuelas, porque mi esperanza es que quiero que 100% de nuestras escuelas sean del listón azul. So what I just finished saying is that please fill out that survey, because my hope is that 100%, of our schools are blue ribbon schools. Mrs. Viramontes.
Thank you, Madam President. I have one question about the graphs. And as far as SRB, I Googled it today because I had to figure out what that was too. In the graphs, I wonder if it'd be interesting to put our attendance on how we're doing, because I think attendance is a key factor on how kids do. And I think until you tie it with it, maybe people won't understand on how well a school does.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, so you and I are thinking alike on that, and just in the interest of time, we didn't pull those numbers. That's why in the future we will have a presentation on attendance, but it's a huge factor. And so before I hand it over to Ms. Villalobos, and I apologize for this, but I practiced this all day, and then I left out one of the key details, which is as I go down to the very last slide, and there we go. So you have the windows, and I did want to let everybody know. I don't like to just come and dump a bunch of numbers and then not give everybody the teaser of when you'll get. But and again, our goal is to be able to have regular updates through our proficiency grading system. But these windows will roll around again. I believe they're implemented in December as far as the middle of the year window. And then the right around January, February, we should have access to the numbers again. We can present again and hopefully demonstrate quite a bit of growth. I'm confident we will. And then finally, how we finish up at in the summer, right around May, June, is the end of the year window for it. And so that'll provide a snapshot for the whole year.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, about the chronic absenteeism, we already have the report ready. And one of the decisions that we did is it was so much information today with the ARP, so much information with this. They say it was too much to provide chronic, but One of the things that Mr. Dempsey wants to do is like every month we can give you the update on the chronic absenteeism report. We already have the report for the month of August. We had a 20% chronic absenteeism rate in the district. Some schools are doing great, and it's like that's when we come to congratulate schools like Loma Linda, Mesquite is like, Chaparral Miro, they are like in 0. And other ones have a lot of chronic absenteeism, but we will bring you the detailed report on the next board meeting.
Madam President, I have one question.
Mrs. Rodriguez.
Well, actually, I guess it's a question and then a comment on the CIR survey. Because I think that Ms. Salazar mentioned about being on Remind, right? So a lot of the parents might not understand what the CIR means, because I had to look it up. It is the curriculum and instruction review. So very important for everyone to do that. Now, my question is, every single campus will be conducting this survey?
Yes, so we have completed Desert View and Sunland Park this last week. We had a closeout session with them. Once all the schools are done, I believe next week we have this side of town. We have 3, yes, so every school will do it, and then every elementary will do it. And we're also, at the same time, we had ran last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a CIR for our CTE programs at the high school as well, because we need to determine which programs are effective, or how do we need to revamp them or update them. So yes, every school, every elementary school will get one, and then we will get a final report for us.
And what is the deadline for that to be completed by every elementary?
Well, as every elementary sends it out, I'm glad that you let me know about that. They're supposed to put their date on there, their due date, I believe. Did you see that on there? If not, I'll touch base with our representative, with Cindy. Mr. Araujo, I don't know if it could be an ongoing, but we're doing it by campus so that we're able to feel cultures of the campus and what the needs are for each individual. Mr. Araujo is leading the elementary.
President Salazar Flores, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, that one is done on an individual basis. Each school has its own deadline. Like we completed Desert View and Sunland Park Elementary, so that deadline's over for those schools. So the next schools will be in Mesquite. It will be 3 schools. And then the following week, it'll be another 3 schools. So each school will have its deadline.
Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Thank you, Mr. Araujo.
Okay, Madam President, board members, a lot of information. We'll continue with that. We will be prepared, as we spoke about. We do have the chronic absenteeism reports, but we just thought that was we're going to save that and be ready for you at the next meeting. But there are some shining stars in that bunch and some areas that we can work on. Okay. Our next item is student representative, and Ms. Estrada is a senior at CHS.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yadira Estrada. I'm the senior representative for Chaparral High School. Some updates that we have regarding our school. We had homecoming week about 2 weeks ago. It went really well. We had a kickball game. It was teachers versus students. Of course, as always, our teachers always beat us. There's no way that we're ever going to win a game against the teachers. They're amazing, though. We had our dance that Friday as well. It went pretty well. It was an outside dance, COVID restrictions, but it was beautifully decorated. Our sports is doing well. Our football team actually has a game going on right now against Silver City. Hopefully we score some points tonight. Our students are excited to support our teams as always, so I'm pretty sure there's a good amount of crowd supporting the football team right now. Our junior class is doing amazing and fundraising money for the seniors prom. It's all exciting. They're doing really well on that. I want to give a big thank you to Mrs. Williams for allowing NHS to partner up with them so that we could be able to complete our community service hours. She has given us a big opportunity to complete the hours every semester. And our NHS members, some of them, we helped decorate the stage for tonight's board meeting. We have a new engineering pathway that just came. Our BPA and FCCLA have had meetings, and I know BPA is getting ready for their events so that we can compete, hopefully get to state, and then hopefully we can get to nationals again this year, and we can actually travel if COVID allows us to. Our SATs are around the corner. It will be in October. Johnston's came to our campus on Wednesday for caps and gowns for the seniors. And currently our seniors are applying for a lot of scholarships, and our counselors have been really well in giving us all that information. Thank you. Is there any comments or questions?
I was gonna say hi, Mija.
Okay, our next item is board member input.
Thank you, Superintendent Dempsey. Thank you, Ms. Yanira. Mrs. Viramontes.
First, want to thank Ms. Williams and her staff for a lovely luncheon today, and for the music. I love that they made their instruments and that they are totally I think to me, this is the best part about being on the board, is going to schools. And so we truly missed this when we were on virtual meetings. So, but thank you very much. And congratulations to Ms. Gomez. And I love the idea, too, that she graduated from Gadsden High School, and she came back to give back to her community and knows her community. And she's the art teacher, but she teaches. It doesn't matter what you teach. She inspires these other teachers and kids, and so congratulations. I love the spotlight. We should post that on our website and make sure everybody gets to see a teacher spotlight. The SREB, I had Desert View just mentioned to me that they had theirs come through their school, and of course I had to Google what it meant because I wasn't sure. So Southern Regional Education Board, and I'm thinking, why is a Southern Region Board? And so anyways, but they go through the schools and they give them, they go and they make recommendations, and they enjoy the feedback with them, and on things that you're doing well and things that you may need help on. And so I know Desert View and Sunland Park both went through it this week. I attended Sunland Park's Coffee with the Principal, and they had 7 or 8 parents virtually, which I think is good, because sometimes we don't get anybody, and I'm the only one on it, so I appreciate that. And they had some really good questions. A lot of it was about after-school programs and how excited after-school programs the parents are about it, the students are about it. Some of the schools are overflowing with after-school. Santa Teresa Elementary has 20 million people trying to get into the robotics program. La Union starts theirs. So there's a lot going on in these schools, and that's helped to recover learning loss. It's not just about sitting at a desk and doing math and English, and this all adds to it. In the communication, he talked about students not interacting with each other. This all helps. So I look forward to seeing some of these after-school programs. If you ever want to look on one of the school websites, they'll tell you all the different programs that they have and what's offered. Again this week, Santa Teresa High School has an athlete nominated for Player of the Week, along with Gadsden High School was nominated in the Las Cruces Sun News as Player of the Week. We have a quarterback and a running back. So I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, but I think today did end. So, and congratulations to both those athletes. And out of 3 of the nominees, 2 of them are from our district, so congratulations. La Union has had construction. You know, they had a flood, they had construction. They are finally going to have that wing that they've been working on finished. And so hopefully when the students get back after the break, everything will be open within that area. So good news for La Union, and well-deserved. It's where all their special programs are at. Last but not least, I want to mention that there's a letter that went home to parents in Santa Teresa Middle School, and I know it's been some comments at some of the Santa Teresa High School. Students have been vandalizing campuses, and it's all on a TikTok video, and they have a list, and every week or every month that these students are supposed to do, from vandalizing bathrooms to stealing things off teachers' desks and then posting it on a video. Parents need to be aware of this. This is vandalism. This is a crime. You can get prosecuted for this stuff, and it's not funny. And they have a whole list of what they're going to do the next couple months. Each month has a challenge. And I know that it was getting so bad that a school had to send letters home to the parents. You know, it may be cute and it may be funny, but, you know, a teacher works really hard in her classroom. The maintenance people work hard in their schools, and then to take pride in your school and then vandalize it or to steal from somebody, it just makes no sense to me. You know, and I know we're all young, we all do stupid things. We all did stupid things and maybe still do, but, you know, you have to think about the consequences, and you have to think about who you may be hurting in the long run. And so just take that to heart, and if you're a parent, talk to your student about it. Let them know, and let them know what's wrong about that. So that concludes my report.
Mrs. Viramontes, Vice President Castillo.
First of all, I want to thank Ms. Williams for her hospitality. Ms. Quite, congratulations on that. Ms. Gomez, that one student that said, "What more can I say?" It says it all. Says it all. I mean, at that age, they talk forever, and "what more can I say?" says it all. Congratulations. And Mr. Dempsey, I want to ditto what Ms. Rodriguez said. Thank you for putting up with the board, and thank you for sticking it out for another 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Mr. Cano.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank and congratulate. Great job, I mean, with the instrumentation and the music. I know when I was growing up, my parents killed me because I was using the pots and pans to drum. And now it's music. I wish I had it back then. I want to congratulate Ms. Gomez for being selected, you know, and a Gadsden member. And I'm happy that we're getting people back, you know, to instruct, to help us move forward. You know, that's what we're here for, and that's what we live for. Congratulations to Ms. Quite, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Mrs. Rodriguez.
Well, as everyone said, thank you, Ms. Williams, for hosting this meeting tonight. Thank you for the awesome mass. And then congratulations to Ms. Estrada. I had the pleasure of meeting her before she was on the other side of the mountain. So that's great. And something that really I thought was so neat, the fact that she's saying, I love, you know, seeing that sunrise. So the sunrise, the name of the school is perfect. That's just beautiful. When I heard it the first time, it was like, wow, you know, that creates a big impact. So congratulations to her, and congratulations to you on this beautiful campus. And of course, same thing here. I thought it was so creative, you know, that the kids were utilizing instruments that we have at home. And so inspiring our kids to do that, you know, and not be like some parents before, that they wouldn't allow them. Please, you know, it's really building that creativity in them and inspiring them to do something that, you know, possibly was never even thought, and especially now that we are utilizing all this social media, right? And I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what Ms. Viramontes was saying. I want to thank Mr. Giron for doing some YouTube videos. And he is, you know, he is creating that awareness and asking for that support from parents. You know, we need to be very proactive, we need to be very engaged, and we need to be very responsible of what our kids are doing. So thank you for that, Mr. Giron, and I think that, you know, it applies to every single campus, not just Gadsden High School. So if you have a chance, watch those videos. Of course, Ms. Quite, the Blue Ribbon School, that's something that's great, right? It seems like, I mean, I know that we want all of the schools, but if we see it's been moving, you know, it's not just one location. So something that Ms. Salazar was saying, you know, almost every time that I would see that and hear that, I would say, okay, give us the blueprint. You know, I want that for my kids' school. So I think that we're on the right track, you know, looking at the data and seeing what has been helping and what changes or what things are being utilized in one school that we can apply elsewhere. So it might not be a blueprint, but it's something that we'll support. And of course, Gadsden is having this is their homecoming week. So it'll be interesting tomorrow. And I know that some kids that are part of the court and never would have imagined that they would have been part of that, and that's great. Congratulations to all of them. I think that they're all winners, even if they don't have that king, queen, whatever the different titles are. And let's see, I had one more thing. Oh, if we want to change, right, we want a positive change, it definitely has to be everyone. We all need to collaborate. We all need to partner in this. And that's the students, the parents, the community, and of course the schools. We cannot depend just on the schools. We cannot just depend on the parents or the students, right? So we all need to work together. And so I always say and encourage parents, right? Because to me, that's the foundation. You know, we are the first teachers. So if that foundation is created or done well, our kids are going to be aware that these TikToks are out there, but you know what? I don't need to participate. I don't need to be a part of that. So please, I encourage you to please participate in the Coffee with the Superintendent, Coffee with the Principal at their campus levels, and of course the staff, the wrap-up meetings. You know, those, again, bring your questions, anything that you might not understand. It's a perfect opportunity to bring those points out, and Mr. Dempsey is always very open and answers those questions too, as best as he can. And sometimes, you know, we don't hear what we want to hear, but it's okay. You know, it's okay, and we need to be very open-minded and seeing that we're moving forward, and sometimes what I want is not necessarily what is necessary at the moment. And I conclude with that.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. I got all of you, right? Yes. Okay, so my turn. Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you once again for coming out, and thank you to the parents that are still here. Thank you for hanging in there. We'll try to wrap it up so we can go next door, watch the game. And if you got one delicious food, el bayo, right? Stephanie, hi. Okay, so once again, happy birthday, because we have a couple of days left. So if any of you are happy September babies, again, happy birthday. We sure are glad you were born and that you are part of the Gadsden Independent School District. And so happy birthday and enjoy the rest of your birthday month. Let me see. Thank you, Principal Williams and your assistant principal for your hospitality. I send my daughter with my tacos, so when I get home, I will enjoy those. And the tres leches cake I ate that before here. I sneaked in there and ate it, huh? And my cookies, I'll eat those here in a bit. Thank you so much for the hospitality, and I will be sure tomorrow I will wear the Sunrise Elementary, and when they tell me, oh, that's Sunrise Elementary over there, no, it's Sunrise Elementary here. So thank you. Thank you so much. It's really pretty. The other thing is, yes, I'm going to piggyback on what Mrs. Rodriguez said, is parents, it is so important that you attend coffee with the principal, coffee with the superintendent. Coming to such meetings is where you get educated, and now there really is no excuse for not being able to join us in person, because I have requested to Mr. Dempsey is that every single meeting, every workshop should be streamed. So even if you can't be participating interactively, at least you're listening, make your questions. You can call us, any of us, call Mr. Dempsey, his office, his academic team. And I would remind you also is follow chain of command. I will ask you, sir, maybe at a later time, one of your coffees with the superintendent should be the topic of what chain of command means. Because when we say chain, I think of a cadena, right? Well, a chain, but what that summary is real fast is whatever comments, concerns you may have, questions, you always want to deal with the person, the first person. For example, if it has to do with academics, you go to your teacher first. Wherever, and even if praise, also we want to hear praises, follow chain of command. So if there's an incident, I hate to say it, or some concern, and if it happens within the classroom, start by communicating with that individual, and then that doesn't mean that you stop at the teachers, let them know, and then by all means, go with your administrators. Then following the administrators would be, I believe, the superintendent, but depending on the concern, it could then be the academic team, which is Mr. W. Is he here this evening? No, but he's secondary, so those of you who are our middle school parents and high school parents, you would go to him. And then we have Mr. Araujo, if you can stand. Mr. Araujo would take care of parents in elementary. And then after him, after those two individuals, it would be Ms. Hernandez, right there, Ms. Hernandez. And of course, then it'd be Mr. Dempsey. And after Mr. Dempsey is the five of us. Yes, come see us, call us. But that's not to say that, yes, follow the chain of command, but that's not to say that they're not willing to take a phone call from you. Sometimes, depending on the situation, they're willing to, right? You have an open door policy, so right? So feel free to call and make an appointment, okay? So he'll talk to you about that later at a later time. So yes, come to, because what happens is many times, what ends up happening, is we end up falling into that game of the telephone, which, I whisper something into Dr. Browder's ears, and then she whispers to Ms. Williams. By the end, the message is totally changed. And sometimes we have to admit, sometimes out of our mouths are coming out things that probably we're miscommunicating. So it's always best not to spread miscommunications. Go to the source, tell them what's going on, and we're here to help you, okay? So enough of that. So talking about coffee with the principals, I really want to give a shout out this evening to Principal Duque, Angelica Duque, to Principal Victoria Lopez, to Principal Rita Avila. Yesterday was awesome, ladies. I think that's a good strategy. So what they did, and I thought I was like, am I in the right place or what's going on? So these three ladies got together and they had coffee with the principal. So that's an idea there for any feeder pattern. They had a little bit more turnout, and maybe the other three schools can join. I think the meeting was like an hour and 15 minutes. If we have all the schools, it might go a little bit longer, but what's awesome is that those parents, including myself, who have many kids, right? We have kids literally in every school, middle school. So there we don't have to go to, 3 different meetings. We take care of it in one. And the cool thing is that, yes, every school has its challenges. Like that evening, the 3 ladies shared their challenges regarding the cell phone usage. And so they did it really fast. But what was awesome is, for example, the topic of a very heated issue, right? We had the media out there, and it's rightfully so. Parents have the right to share their concerns regarding the grading proficiency. So yesterday they talked about that. And, that actually affects all 3 schools. So that was awesome to me, is that the expectations are the same for all the schools, a little bit different, between middle school, high school, and elementary. But that was awesome. So I would encourage, you all to maybe start thinking about that. You'll get, we'll see. That was the first time, and congratulations, ladies, okay? Okay, moving on. Tomorrow I'll be traveling to Albuquerque to celebrate the national team of Chaparral Middle School, our national winners for Mesa. So they're going to be recognizing them tomorrow in a dinner reception. So I'll be traveling. Congratulations, Ms. Gomez. I did have the pleasure of working with her here at Sunrise Elementary. Awesome teacher. Before she became an art teacher, she was a fellow kindergarten teacher. So congratulations. Moving on. Last thing is, yes. Congratulations to our Knights, our Chaparral Middle School Knights. I learned yesterday that they are undefeated. I think that's going to be in a couple of years, that's going to be our Lobo team that's going to win, okay? And so win or lose, we're here to support our kids in any school, whether it's Gadsden High School, Santa Teresa High School, Chaparral Lobos. So I would encourage all our communities, to go support our kids in the events that they're in. And again, this evening after our board meeting, I welcome you to go join us next door as Chaparral Lobos are taking on Silver City. Any highlights yet? Any scores yet? But okay, and that's it for me. Thank you for coming out this evening. Okay, moving on to our human resource report that is available to the public, the personnel report. No action is required from the board, but that's for the public information. Moving on to modification of the agenda, do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda without modification.
Okay, Mrs. Viramontes has made a motion to accept the agenda without modification. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item 6A, our special board meetings for September 9th and September 16th. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to accept special board meeting September 9th, 2021, and regular school board meeting minutes on September 16th, 2021.
Mr. Cano has made a motion to accept the minutes for September 9th and September 16th as listed. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is.
Ms. Rodriguez has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to open forum. Ms. Delgado, do we have anybody in open forum?
Madam President, we have one open forum.
Okay. Okay, so welcome, Ms. Lucinda Ochoa. Thank you for joining us this evening. Real quick, let me read this little blurb to you. English or Spanish?
English.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, personal attacks upon board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are discouraged. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that convey an unjustly unfavorable impression may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation, as listed by the policies. I'm not going to read them to you. These policies are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Okay, so things don't work quite well, but you have 3 minutes, and so when you begin, I'll start timing you, okay?
3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Lucinda Ochoa. I am a parent at parent of a GISD high school senior and third grade elementary student. I am here on behalf of my children and the GISD parent and student community. We have a petition with more than 1,700 signatures against the grading system that GISD has implemented. I would read the petition, but since I'm limited with time, I will. But the petition is welcome to everybody. It's on Facebook, and if you need the link, I can also give it to you. Studies show that if you convince your students that high expectations are attainable, they will succeed. But this new grading system shows them the opposite. You have mentioned this is to improve testing scores, but how will that work if you are only changing the evaluation process, but not the comprehension? GISD students need better education, and changing the assessment of education will not improve their SAT and ACT scores. Knowledge will improve it. This is a deficit-based approach, where you see these students as the problem. They are not the problem. The learning, the teaching, and the education is the problem. GISD cannot simply place a higher standard for students without first identifying their educational needs or gaps and addressing those first. It is setting them up for failure. There has to be a connection between high expectations and high education. If you want your students to achieve higher testing scores, teach them cognitive teaching skills, critical teaching skills, and testing skills. Do not conceal your educational deficit by curving down grades, because this is what this grading scale is doing to them. Students learn if they are educated, not if they are graded harder. To improve testing scores, you should identify areas of need, to use research-based best practices to help students grow and catch up where they are missing information and skills. Test scores are not up to par because the education is not up to par. How is changing the grading method to a harder method going to help them? For example, when they go to college, grading will be back to traditional, and students will still have the lack of knowledge, and they will still be under the GISD history. How does this help? How is this improving students? The only thing you are changing is their confidence and messing with their mental health. To your top students, you are telling them, no matter how much effort you put into your education, your teacher, your school, and your district will not give you an A. even after your perfect 100% score. Students are writing extra work on tests to earn an A, but the teacher still can say that that's not the answer they expected and not give them their A or not give them the higher grade that they should deserve. Grading should not be subjective and left to interpretation. This is not grad school. These students are not working for their master's or their doctorates. More preparation should have been done before implementing this new grading system.
Okay, I'm gonna, is it okay if I let her finish because?
I'm almost done.
No, go ahead, because you know what, you're the only one. Thank you
Okay.
for coming out. Yes,
Okay.
go ahead.
More preparation should have been done before implementing this new grading system. Teachers were not and are not prepared for this change. The grading rubric was given to teachers one day before school started. They were not aware of changes. There was no training for the teachers on this new grading system. And now they have to use it, and they also have to be subjective with it. And there is no way to measure or guide these teachers with subjective scoring that it requires. Not to mention, teachers do not agree with the new grading system, but are afraid to say it. Finally, I want to remind you, these students are children trying to survive stressors at home and at school, trying to surpass challenges and conflicts that we do not see or know about. I understand your goal and what you want to accomplish, but this is not the way of getting it. You want to improve your numbers and scores, but you do not realize that each statistic data you are looking at is a student, a real person, a child.
Thank you. We cannot legally respond to what you said, but I appreciate you coming out here. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam President, board members, I would encourage our speaker to come sit down with our leadership team. We would love to sit down and work with anybody. And you know, I emphasize that, you know, as I said earlier, this is a journey. This will not get fixed overnight. And quite frankly, there's some of the pieces that I agree with. But I also have to tell you, every day we're in a classroom is a day closer to graduation. And that means the time's ticking for our students. And when they graduate, they need to be ready. I would encourage you to just come sit with us. Thank you.
Where would I sit with you?
You could come by our office. I would be happy to meet with you, and we will exchange our info. I can get you all my information, and our leadership team will be happy to sit down with you.
Okay, because I agree, especially for the seniors. This is affecting them more.
Okay. And Ms. Ochoa, I will make sure I will pass this to Superintendent Dempsey, and he will be calling you to set up however comfortable you feel, whether virtual or in person, an appointment so that you can meet with him and his team or whatever you request, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to action items. 9A, employee compensation enhancement.
All right, Madam President, board members, this is an item we had in discussion at our last meeting, and I want to just kind of go over some of the details of it. We do have it listed as an action. If we're ready, we can move on it. If we don't feel like we're comfortable, then we can bring it back again and fine tune it till we're ready. Ms. Martinez and I have talked about it, and we're ready to start working on it whenever the board's comfortable. So we talked about a total. This would be some compensation that would be provided in 2 increments, a total of $1,000 for all full-time employees, and that would look like $500 at December. Now, last time we discussed it, I had said $500 in May or June. What I'm being told now, with guidance from other districts that have already done it, is we should provide that. We should be prepared to provide that probably in March or April. So we're going to move that second one up earlier in the second semester. So first one's still in December, second one March, April, whenever finance feels appropriate, and we'll make sure we're advertise it. Will be separate check, so everybody sees that as separate. And then for part-time employees, we wrestled with this a little bit. It's a challenge. We have some part-time employees, and I sure didn't want to leave them out of this conversation. They're really important to us, many of them in S&P. And so, you know, they have been through a lot, and we appreciate all their work and effort. the proposal for that would be, we thought about prorating it, and then it just got really difficult. And so we're going to say anybody on a part-time or hasn't worked the full semester would get $250 for that semester, and then, you know, next semester, if they only work partial, it'd be $250. Now, if they work the full, then they would, maybe you have an employee that started late, so this semester, they would get $250. Next semester, if they work full-time, it'd be $500. If they're part-time the whole year, $250. We are working to include our bus drivers, and we're going to have to work with our contractor to piece that together, because we can't pick them up as employees, but we think we have a way to do that and a process for it. Ms. Martinez, did I miss any highlights that you can think of that might be important to the finance side of the house? And I apologize.
Madam President, members of the board, no, I think you got that. I just don't want to say that from back there.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But board members, are there any pieces that you think, because the one thing that gets, as we set as a leadership team, we were walking through different groups, and you know, I'm not suggesting we've thought of everything. So if you have thought of a specific group or a question, I'd be more than happy to try to answer it, and we'll try to figure our way through it. But the goal being recognizing our incredibly hardworking employees, all of our incredibly hardworking employees.
Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Cano?
For the bus drivers, are they getting the same $250 for the part-timers and the $1,000 for the full-timers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Madam President, I have a question. So I know that one of the questions was before, and I think you sent it to us, to look around different areas, what the other districts were doing, right? And so if you had any comment on that.
Absolutely, Madam President, Ms. Vermontes, I sure appreciate that good little reminder. So I reached out to districts our size, larger districts, and I reached out to Albuquerque Public Schools, Las Cruces, Los Lunas, and Rio Rancho. And so Albuquerque Public Schools did $1,000. Los Lunas did $1,200. Rio Rancho did $200. And Las Cruces is planning $850. So I think we're well within the range, if you will, for what was distributed across the state.
One more question, sorry. And then, so with that being said, I mean, I like $1,000. I like the breakdown for part-time. And I know we just hired these substitutes. And I know that's hard to keep track of how you would give them something extra because they're not considered a full-time employee, but knowing that maybe at the end of the year, if they stick within a contract all year, and I mean, is there something in that, Rob?
Madam President, Ms. Vermontes, fabulous question. In my mind, I considered them part-time employees. That would be $250 each semester. That's how, and I'm going to tell you, we need them. We are, I'm incredibly excited about adding 66 subs to our sub pool, but we need them no matter what. And I think that's an incentive, if you will.
Any further questions or comments? So just so the public knows, where is this money coming from?
President Salazar, members of the board, I would allocate those funds from our operational funds.
So we're not, did other districts use operational funds, or did you say operational funds?
I did say operational funds. I know that other districts have used their ESSER funds. I would, and I don't think that we've had a discussion as to where exactly, but I would propose that we use operational funds.
And why would we not use ESSER funds?
I think when we were looking at the priorities, it wasn't something that was on the list. And right now, our operational fund would be able to afford it. So I think just based on the list and the information that Ms. Villalobos gathered, I think there were other things that were pressing at that time, and this is something we can cover with our operational funds.
So so if we had, if I know Rosie's shaking her head, no, because that'll make a mess there. But for the future, then, had we listed that, then ESSER funds could have been considered.
They could have been considered. I know that there's very specific guidelines as to how those ESSER funds needed to be used. And I think when we looked at it, we felt that maybe some of the other requests were higher in priority at that time. But it is something we can cover with operational, so that was just a decision that was made. But yes, it is something that you could use under ESSER funds.
So operational under cash balance, because I don't want us to get in trouble with Mr. Colon.
No, no, it wouldn't. No, it would not be cash balance. We have enough cushion, I guess, in our current operating budget to be able to cover. Depending on what that amount is, which I think is something we discussed today, and who would be covered, I do think we need to put some parameters around it. As far as, who's going to get, we need to look as, do we compensate people that are out on FMLA, that are our workers' comp, people that are on leave of absence? So all those things need to be considered, and once we have that number, then we can quantify what that cost is. I expect it'll be, depending on what's covered, between $2.5 to $3 million.
Madam President, board members, just for clarification, in my mind, and I would definitely take any suggestions, but these funds would be for employees currently working at our schools. So if you're on an approved leave of absence, if you're on FMLA, if you're not working in our schools, they would not be eligible. Now, you can tell me differently if you feel differently, but I felt like the recognition really at some level is you're at work serving our kids right now.
And my other question would be, how much longer would it take to figure out the bus drivers?
I am not sure. I think that's something that is being right now looked at by Mr. Dempsey. It's not something that I've been directly involved with, so I'll have to defer that question to Mr. Dempsey or whoever's.
Madam President, board members, I think the bus driver piece is we're just going to figure out how we're going to have to figure out how to either invoice or contract negotiate. But I think I can turn that pretty quickly. Usually when a vendor is recognizing their employees and we're giving them money, it's pretty quick to make that happen. They're pretty open to those ideas.
So colleagues, are we agreeing then? Do we agree to proceed with approving the $1,000 for, how did you say it, full-time employees that are currently serving not only our kids but our schools?
Did you want a motion?
Madam President, I make the motion that we accept the compensation, and with this comment, if we accept it, now we put them to work, to find those parameters, and my opinion, to get our employees what they deserve. So I'll make a motion that we accept the compensation.
Okay. Can I make a comment or no? Okay, so our question before I pass it on to you is, oh my goodness, I went blank, hold on. Yes, se me olvidó. Oh, yes, so that the public will know, and whoever's listening, so this will be 2 separate checks. So if you've been working with this semester, you'll get $500 come December, and of course, it's gonna be taxed, but you're not gonna get your insurance removed from that or anything like that. It's just taxation, right?
Well, taxes do need to be paid, but insurance, dental, that will not be deducted. But there are some, taxes is something that we have to pay. The other thing I just do want to comment is that one of the parameters I would suggest that we put on there is maybe that the employee receiving compensation would have been hired on or before a certain date. I would propose August 31st.
And for the second disbursement?
So what I guess what I meant by that is that that this first round of or retention, whatever we want to call this,
Compensation enhancement. Yes.
right, that it would be for employees who were hired on or before August 31st, so that they have been here for the last at least 30 calendar days, 30 to 40 calendar days.
Okay, so, So Mr. Castillo has made a motion that we want to move forward with the compensation enhancement with the understanding that the parameters, one of the parameters would be that you have to be a full-time employee that's been hired on or before October 31st, 2021. And
August.
What am I saying? What did I say?
You said October.
August 31st, sorry. Full-time or part-time? Anything else?
As soon as they're designed, we'll put it out for bid, and then we will order the parts, and hopefully, if it doesn't get delayed, we can start that work sometime in the spring. La Unión Elementary has completed their work. We're doing the punch list items. That means that they're correcting little issues that we found, such as the units not being programmed correctly, and they're working on those as we speak. North Valley Irrigation Well, we're still waiting on the state engineer to provide us the permission. We'll be transferring water rights from Gadsden High School to dig a well in North Valley for our irrigation purposes. Sunrise Elementary, a roofing project, we had to do a re-bid on that one. Those are due next week, and then we will be bringing them to the board again for approval, either the October 7th or October 28th. The Yucca Heights Elementary panel replacement project, we're waiting on the parts to come in so that we can fix the issues that were occurring because of the heat there hitting those panels. Some of the rubber seals have come out. We're waiting for those parts to come in so that they can get that job done. Berino Elementary well, we did get permission this week. We got the engineering rights to dig that well, so we're waiting on the well digger to finish his current job, then he'll move to Berino to dig that well out. Chaparral High School replacement valves and heat pumps are in process. The kitchen makeup units, we're going to do one next week. And the comm links, they're waiting on a couple of parts for the Santa Teresa Middle School communication links to be completed. The next page after that is the construction project updates. Those 2 pages are projects that we're waiting on the 11-month inspection. Whenever we do a project, we have a 1-year warranty on it. So once the 11-month inspection comes about, as the estimated completion date is given there, then we go through, check, make sure that everything is up to par, and then we move it into the summary completed overall recap. And that's why I gave you the last page, because these numbers, as you can see, that are sitting there were not figured into the summary recap. Now, the summary recap starts back in 2009 when I started in this position, and you are welcome to go through that whole packet. But what I come to as new information from the past that we haven't presented is the last page that I just gave you. The total amount that has been used up since 2010 is in the district $106,753,764.95 of district bond money and other money that we received. PSFA money that we have received over that time frame is $155,293,955.74 for a total expenditure since 2010 of $262,758,000. $47,720.69, which is a good chunk of money and construction that we have done in the last 11 years. I stand for questions.
Madam President?
Go ahead.
Mr. Gallegos, in the HAVAC upgrades, is that any of that money coming from ESSER?
Yes.
Okay.
We have $7 million from the ESSER 2 funds.
Hence all the projects on there, right? The
That's all,
district-wide?
several
Okay.
of the projects listed in there. We still have Santa Teresa Middle School gym that we have to put out to design. We have Santa Teresa Elementary HVAC upgrade to put out to design there. La Unión has been covered under there. Gadsden High School will be covered under there for the gym, and then we have the portables.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ms. Rodriguez.
Mr. Gallegos, I might have missed this, but on the kitchen makeup, it states at CMS, DT, SRE, and BE, but then it says CMS canceled. What was the?
The reason we canceled the Chaparral Middle School is because, remember, we applied for PSFA funds, and we have received funding through PSFA to remodel or rebuild Chaparral Middle School, and that's our next discussion by Nancy, as well as Gadsden Middle School. So we figured, why put in a new unit if we could make the old one work, save that money, and we'll replace it when we get the whole new school built. Make sense?
Definitely. Thank you.
Other questions?
Any other questions or comments? So I don't know if this is appropriate to ask. So I just heard you say HVAC, some portion of the HVAC is being
Paid for by
for?
ESSER 2
By
funds.
ESSER. What other projects are being paid with ESSER funds?
On our side, construction side, is just the HVAC, which is La Unión. We also paid, or will be paying for Gadsden High School varsity gym, for Santa Teresa Elementary cafeteria, for Santa Teresa Middle School gymnasium, and then for the 10 portables here at most of them are here at Desert Trail, the 10 portable HVAC upgrade there, replacing the old HVACs or cooling systems and heating systems there.
Okay.
Okay?
I think there's no more further questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Gallegos.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10B, RFPs 2122-67, Gadsden Middle School, and 21-2268, Chaparral Middle School. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Vela is going to present this item to us.
Good evening, Board President, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. It's my pleasure to bring to you this time the two RFPs for Gadsden and Chaparral Middle Schools. Part 1, Building System Analysis, and Part 2, Campus Master Plan and Educational Specifications for discussion. These RFPs are the planning phase to complete the building system analysis, a master plan, and the educational specifications for each school to determine options to renovate or replace the existing middle schools. Upon the completion of this phase, we will submit them to PSFA for the next cycle of the funding, the next out-of-cycle funding phase, to include approval of the design enrollment. We had a pre-proposal conference in September 14. It was at 1 p.m. in Chaparral Middle School and at 3 p.m. in Gadsden Middle School. The submission of proposals, it's on September 27 at 2 p.m. And we will come back for action either October 7 or October 21, depending if interviews are needed. Any questions?
Questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question, Madam President.
Go ahead now.
So this is just to give the discussion about you setting out an RFP for you're setting out for 2 bids, one for if it's rebuilt and one for if it's to remodel? I mean,
No.
or are you sending it just to be or is it just analyzing it? What's better?
Board President, board members, PSFA decides to do it by phases in order to issue the complete funds for the replacement or the renovation.
What's more cost effective, either to replace it or just to,
So this is the first phase, that is the planning phase. they issued to each of the schools 75,000.
Okay.
They was aware first to make these reports. And then from there, determine if the schools is gonna be renovated or replaced. And we have 2 RFPs because we do one for Gadsden Middle School and one for Chaparral Middle School.
And so once we submit that back to the PSCOC, right, or PSFA, at that point, they take in consideration whatever the report says to how much money that they'll authorize, correct? Or is the next phase the drawing?
They're gonna be based on the
analyst.
on the plan, on the reports that we submit to PSFA, if there's gonna be a renovation or a replacement. If they do the replacement that we're pushing for both schools, they're gonna submit the phase for design. So they're gonna give us the funding for design first.
Okay.
We're gonna create the funding for the design. And after that, we submit it to PSFA again, and then give us the money for the construction.
Okay, so it, pretty much, they're paying for the analyzing of it, and then they're gonna pay for the whatever way they think it goes, right? The either design of a new building or remodel, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you present on the final phase of money, right? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
correct.
We'll still have 2 more presentations,
Right.
one for selection of the architect for design, and then after that,
Right.
the presentation for the selection of the contractor.
Okay, and so in your timeline, because I think it's in April, don't they do awards, or is that what they're gearing towards, to hopefully have the final drawing by April of next year, or, because I mean, I know there's a timeline for those.
That's our timeline.
Okay,
That's
right,
not
but usually
PSFA's timeline.
PS
We have to keep pushing PSFA. They
Right.
just lost their chief person. So
Surprise.
for Martika is going to, Jonathan is next week is his last day. He's moving to Los Alamos. Jonathan Chambers. But then Martika will be taking over until they hire a new person. So hopefully that doesn't muddle up the system.
Okay.
And we continue moving forward. But it might be, that we slow down because PSFA has, like most other organizations, is losing people and getting tight on work.
Okay. So because because they're approved the analyzing and the whatever the next phase is, does our match stay the same since that's when it starts? Or maybe if it changes, will it?
No, we have, our matches there. They have committed for the 38 million plus minus and
Yeah,
48 million plus or
I was just hoping it
minus
went
for each
down,
of the
that's all.
schools. So the commitment is there. The only thing that would impact it, and then we'd have to go back to see if they provided more money, is if the construction costs continue to rise to where we figured out $310 a
Then our
square
match
foot, and say they come in at 350, 400, then we would say, hey, well, help us out, give your percentage, and we'll get our percentage somewhere so that we can build the schools.
Right, because the cost of construction goes up, that puts our match higher too. I mean, we
Right.
have to put more money in. Okay, all right, thank
Okay.
you.
So I have just, because budget, and this is another area that I'm learning more about it. So just to make sure, so the PFCSA, whatever. Okay, will analyze our 2 schools, which means they will come in person and I guess take pictures, document, no?
No, not the PSFA. They have already looked at us, the schools with us. The first thing they want to do is get an architect and engineers to evaluate the schools. This evaluation that we're just going through now, they will say, well, this is bad, this is replaced, this is good, and then they will come up with an idea saying, you should either replace the whole school or you can remodel the school, and here's what you have to do to remodel it, plumbing, HVAC, etc. So once we get that evaluation, then we have to do an ed spec. We hope to do our ed spec and evaluation concurrently, because the ed spec is a meeting that you discuss with administrators, teachers, and other district personnel as to what do you need to teach middle school kids. We already have a high school ed spec, we have an elementary ed spec, but we don't have a middle school ed spec. So they'll get input and say, okay, we need this size of classroom, we need these types of classrooms, we need these types of gyms, cafeterias, etc. So that ed spec will then be the plan that we will turn over to the architect, who will then start designing with us.
Okay, but let me go back. So, but there will be architect that's going to come and look at the school again?
Yes, the
Okay.
architect and his engineers will evaluate the school. It's an evaluation process. And then they can't design the school. They can't even participate in the design. It has to be a whole new, different architect that will do the design based on this plan or the
So-
information.
Okay. So in the end, who really decides? Because I kept hearing, Ms. Nancy, what's your last name? I'm sorry, I'm asking.
Vela.
Vela, okay, but I remember your first name. So Ms. Vela, and Mr. Gallegos, so, yeah, who in the end, so is it all based on a rubric? And who in the end really decides whether we get the remodeling or the rebuilding of a new school?
The remodeling or the replacement. It is a engineering architect evaluation and input. It's not a rubric per se, it's from their expertise. They will look at the structural, they have a structural engineer and say, okay, the structure's good, or no, this is falling and it's better to replace it because over the next, we try to build schools that last 50 years. So over the next 50 years, it's not gonna last. They recommend to replace it. Now, our intention is to say, okay, we've hired you and we want you to make sure that you evaluate this to the point that we would like to replace both schools. That's our intention. Gadsden Middle School is pretty much a given. Built in 1965, PSFA did say that we should replace the original building. So we already have one assessment on there. PSFA is requiring a second assessment. And the first assessment said, yes, you should replace it because of the plumbing and everything else. Now, Chaparral Middle School, which was built around 91, may or may not qualify for replacement. We, Nancy and I, plus whoever else might be involved from the district, will be pushing towards, let's replace this school. It's going to be better for it to be remodeled to fit the current situation and teaching environment, because what was built 30 years ago does not fit today's teaching environment, where you have a lot more technology and everything else. And if we just start trying to put this technology back into an old school, it's not going to look and function as well as a new school would be. So there's a lot of factors that we'll be pushing when we sit down with engineers and give them our input, because we're the ones that live and work in that school, as opposed to them coming in for 5-6 days and saying, well, okay, I saw the plumbing, I saw the lights, I saw electricity, I saw the data, I saw the IT, here's what our recommendation is. Okay?
Okay, thank you for all you do, and thank you for the clarification, Ms. Vela and Mr. Gallegos. Thank you.
Madam President, just one quick question. EdSpec, Educational Specifications, is that what it stands for? Okay. That's why you involve the teachers and the administration, because they know what the needs are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to discussion item 10C, GISD policy, JICA-R, our mask requirements. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this particular item I'll present. What we're being asked to, and I'll point out that this is technically a regulation under that dress code policy, okay? But I wanted to make sure we had this conversation. This is it basically puts into policy the mask requirement that we're already adhering to, okay? It is very important because ESSER funds and ARP funds are dependent upon ensuring now, and this just came out in the last 10 days, that mask policy is in your policy and then in your handbook. So it is required. It must be displayed on our district website. I believe it's displayed right now as a draft. And so what I'd like to do, and I'd listen to any input you have, I'd like to go ahead, because as a regulation, we can go ahead and implement that administratively and then bring it back to you so that Ms. Villalobos can submit everything next week, and then I'll bring it back to you to make sure, and we can do a formal passing of it. But because it's a regulation, we can administratively implement. I just wanted to make sure we had this conversation as a board and you felt comfortable with it. But it is basically mandates mask inside during a pandemic.
Before I give the floor to my colleagues, repeat again, who is telling us to do this?
Well, it's a requirement, it's basically a requirement from the federal government because the ARP dollars are federal dollars and they're requiring every state that accepts those to have mask requirements in their public schools.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Madam President, I have one. You said it's a regulation, so is there just part of it we need to put into the policy and the rest goes in regulation? I mean, because I know a regulation you can go ahead and put in there, but this that you've showed me is not the regulations. You're showing me a policy, correct?
I think what I'm showing you, let me take a glance at that.
It has a policy number on the top.
Why did I think that was an R? So, and I may have inadvertently put the wrong policy up there. I'm going to have to confirm that. So here, to get this through, let me ask the board this, and we can't vote on it because it's not an action item. What I'd like to do, and I'd take any feedback, implement a mask regulation as presented, and then I'll confirm where that fits appropriately in the policy and bring it back to you as a formal action item. And if you're comfortable with that, that'll also give you some time to review it. And if you have questions, we can make adjustments. But the part you won't be able to adjust, just so you know, is really aligns to our Department of Health orders, mask requirements indoors. So those are the pieces we won't have any flexibility to adjust, and that's what Ms. Villalobos needs to submit our ARP application.
Madam President.
Go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
So since everything changes like from one day to the next, I just wonder, I mean, it's almost like it's going to be there because it's implemented currently, but how fluid is it that, tomorrow it changes and we're going to go back and make those adjustments? I mean, I get it that the federal government is asking that this be a part of it, right? But when it comes to the policy, I'm a little bit hesitant because of that. And then I just wanted to make a comment. I think that our kids have been doing such a great job with that, right? And you go to the schools and they're wearing their masks. So I think that it's already been instilled in them that this is necessary. So that's just a comment that I had to make.
Madam President, board members, I appreciate the comment, and I echo those same things. How, sure, Rosie, echo those same things. And I'll even give you a little bit of numbers. We're using a tool that gives us a 14-day running total. I believe today, and Ms. Cregan may correct me, I think I'm at 11. There was about a 2-hour window last week that we were at single digits. I had 9, and then she corrected me, and we were back to double. But, and those are confirmed positive COVID cases. I don't take those lightly. But here's what I would emphasize. Neighboring districts, twice our size, you would kind of estimate would have, probably twice the amount. And one in particular is ranging between 90 and 120 cases every on their 14-day averages, right? And we're around, the highest I've seen, I think, is 36, and the lowest at one point for 2 hours was 9. And I think that really speaks to the effort and the work that everybody's trying to do to minimize the spread of COVID. And I cannot emphasize enough how much I appreciate everybody's efforts. Now, you as board members, you might hear about that, though, because that also means Ms. Cregan's, she's pretty tough on quarantines. Okay, she doesn't give a lot of flexibility, and if there's a, when we say we're going to err on the side of caution, that means we're going to quarantine more kids than maybe other surrounding districts might. But I think that attitude is what's going to keep us in school, because remember, our goal, stay in school the entire year. So, Ms. Villalobos, you probably have something to answer specifically.
Yes, I wanted to, about the time that you were asking, Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, one of the requirements for the ARP proposal that we need to submit is what you're going to be seeing tomorrow on the website, is the new framework for the safe reentry of schools. So they gave us now a framework in the state that we need to, that Ms. Cregan already filled it out for us amazingly. So we're going to be posting this tomorrow. We were waiting for the board meeting. And the requirement is that we update this every 6 months. That's what they're telling us on the ARP application. They want us to, every 6 months to come back to the plan and see if we need to change something and update it. And we are required to have it posted on our website.
For a little bit of clarification, Ms. Rodriguez, I really appreciate your question and your concern of how often are we going to have to change this. So that's really in part why we want it to stay a regulation, because technically as a regulation, the administration can make the changes. I'll always bring it back to you. So if I get in a situation where I have to make a change and we don't have a board meeting, I'll notify you. We'll work to make that change to benefit the district, and then I'll make sure I present it to you.
Madam President.
Ms. Miramontes, go ahead.
That being said, I think that if you do change it, you can have the mask amendment with just the basic statement saying that will be worn determined by the guidelines. And that you could just put that statement in a policy. That way you can change, and then you guys can do whatever.
So I just had a question for clarification. So because we receive federal monies, I get that. So they're not asking us, they're mandating, correct?
If we want their money.
So they are mandating, correct?
Yes, ma'am, Madam President. It is correct that without it, we can't submit our application.
Okay.
It's a requirement of our application.
Are there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, thank you, Superintendent Dempsey. Okay, moving on. Over time, I'm thinking we're gonna evolve and have ears like this, huh? Okay. Next one is discussion item 10D, NMSBA resolution unfunded mandate. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, President Salazar Flores and I had a conversation, and this is specific around student overnight travel. And so based on the current New Mexico Public Education toolkit, when students travel on an overnight event, unvaccinated students are not allowed to be lodged in the same hotel room with vaccinated students, okay? And in fact, it says that unvaccinated students would be in their own room. Now, you know, there's some struggles. I'm not gonna, I know we're in an open meeting, but I want to be real candid with the board, and I scratch my head a little bit when you think of our kiddos, and let's just say if we're doing an overnight trip, that's probably to Albuquerque or Santa Fe or beyond, right? So we load our students on a bus, we sit them two to a seat with masks on, we travel for multiple hours to get where we need to go. We might even play a sporting event, let's just say a football game, tackling other people. We then leave, go eat together, probably spend some time swimming together, and we can't stay in the same hotel room. And it really just here's my biggest struggle with this, and Ms. Nugis has been helping me considerably because she's the one managing this right now. The reason why it's important to bring, I think, to the board is that right now we're primarily dealing with some groups, football, volleyball, athletics. Those students and families are usually accustomed to adjusting, right? They just, they find out of playoff games in, Farmington, and they figure out how to get there and how to work it out. As we progress through this year, we're going to have additional teams. And Mesa program, I think Chaparral Middle School Mesa program is traveling this weekend, right? And we're going to have band, we're going to have CTSOs, we're going to have BPA, and not necessarily are those families accustomed to it. And there's some liabilities with this, leaving a student alone in a room. And as of just probably the last 24 hours, we thought we had a plan. At the time, the plan was to, students and parents would have to travel with their child and cover the expense. I have wrestled with this so much because I believe our students need these experiences so they can see. One of the things I think our students maybe struggle with is just seeing outside their home environments. So what we've tried to do now is say, okay, we're gonna figure out financially a way to cover these expenses, and we're gonna have parents have to meet with us and sign a waiver that they understand their child will be alone in a hotel room. Now, I'm not, you know, if you think that document they sign takes us very far if something happens legally, no. I would be lying to the board if I said it did. It doesn't. But it does acknowledge at some level that parents understand, okay? And I think I'm willing to take that chance because I think the experience is that important. The idea behind the resolution, and I appreciate Ms. Salazar Flores, is really, in essence, what this did is create an unfunded mandate. We've got to figure out a way to pay for these additional expenses on hotel rooms that we had no way of predicting we would need. And we'll figure those pieces out. Now, one of the other things, last week when we talked, or this weekend when we talked about it, we wanted to submit it to the New Mexico School Board Association. I believe those resolutions were due last week. Yes. So what I might suggest, and I don't know if Ms. Flores, you've had any opportunity to work on it. I started a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with us as a board passing a resolution and delivering that to the Secretary of Education. And he's very open to that conversation. I spoke to him twice about this, and he's very open to that conversation. And I'm going to tell you, he sees the inconsistencies, and he's trying very hard to work on our behalf to address those. And so I actually think it makes a difference. I wouldn't ask you to do it if I didn't. And so what we might consider doing is working on that resolution. We could probably put a draft together, get it out to everybody, and maybe even have it as an action item at our next meeting, if that's something the board would like to do. Now, you got to understand this is all based on this toolkit, which, to Ms. Rodriguez's earlier point, tomorrow could change. And if it does, terrific. But I do think it's good to stand when a decision like this made. I think many times they don't recognize the financial repercussions of that decision. And then, you know, like we are a Title I district. Our students need those experiences. Taking those away, I'll be honest with you, I initially agreed, and then I just couldn't live with the thought that said, you know, if a child gets to go to Albuquerque and see UNM campus and just love something about UNM campus, and that then drives them to get good grades and go to UNM, why in the world would I take that experience away from them? And so we're not going to take that experience away from them, but we're going to have to work with our community to help us here a little bit. So, you know, it's possible that we have some parents that are uncomfortable with their child staying alone in a room. If they're unvaccinated, they're going to, you know, there's a little bit of feel here that we're targeting, not purposely, but we're being forced to, unvaccinated individuals. That's not our goal here, but that is currently a requirement. So parents could get very passionate about whether their child's vaccinated or not. And so I just warn all of us it's a little touchy, but I think the intent, I think each of you understand the intent, and we may have to deal with some individuals that may not agree with us.
Questions, comments, or concerns? Mr. Cano?
One question. Do we know with the students that are playing sports and all that, do we know how many, or can that be requested as to how many students have not been vaccinated into something like that?
Mr. Cano, terrific question. We actually, every Monday and we meet at 8 every Monday morning, and we submit a report. One of those questions is about our students participating in extracurricular. I want to be a little careful on my number, but, well, I'm not going to say a number because I'm probably going to mess it up because there's quite a bit of numbers in there. What I'm going to tell you is every athlete that is vaccinated can upload into rank 1 their vaccination information. So we do know how many of our athletes have submitted vaccination cards. Now, it's possible that a student is vaccinated and they don't want to submit that information. So that's possible too. If that's the case, we treat them as unvaccinated. And we're going to be asking all groups currently we're going to have to determine whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated. Again, something athletes might be a little bit more accustomed to submitting, where non-athletic groups, non-band, maybe, I don't know, but they may not be as accustomed to submitting that information, and there could be a little pushback on some of that. So that's where we have to strengthen up and say, well, if you don't submit, then we consider you unvaccinated, and we'll have to operate that way. Make sense? Okay.
Anybody else before I go? No? Okay.
I just have one, Madam President. I just want to make a comment on the NMSBA in the Resolutions Committee. Unfunded mandate is always on their resolutions that they turn in, but since you are on the committee too, I would bring up this as one of the other unfunded mandates, and maybe they can put that adjustment on there already, right? Because they already have unfunded mandate, but it could be listed as, whatever in this concern too. So when you go to the Resolution Committee, mention it to Joe about bringing it up, because usually somebody always submits something on unfunded mandates, and it's always on their resolution platform.
So I was going to ask you about that, because it's been my experience that, okay, we should have submitted, yeah, it was already due, but sometimes they add at the end. So would that have to be already written? So like, would I have to have it written up, or?
It has to be approved by the board,
Yeah,
and I
so
don't think the board will approve it or you can take it with the idea, but
So like we'd have to have approved it, but if anything, I could mention it to Joe.
Correct. Bring it to his attention, because unfunded mandate is always on a legislative platform for the NSBA, because the state and legislators are constantly throwing school districts on mandates that are not funded, constantly. And so that's always a key legislation platform.
But regardless, start working on it so that we could submit it to.
I
Who
think
did
it's
you
a
say we would
great
submit it
idea
to?
for us to do it, and we can also give it to our legislators within our area to take it to on their platform. Some of them are on the Education Committee, so I think it's important that way too.
I can get started. I actually have something started, and probably with a little bit of help from my leadership team, we could get you something as a draft and then let you adjust it as you see fit.
Okay. So I don't want to make a comment. I really appreciate you, sir, making that change. So I'm going to just ask, so who decided that we would charge the kids?
So the conversation began around, because it's being carried by the athletic budget. And so athletics knew what, they have a set budget that's already is allocated, and they did the math and said, here's what we can afford and here's what we can't. And so they felt like they were almost at a point where I'm gonna max out my budget. This is gonna hit me. Now, that's the other side of this. For CTSOs, for other traveling groups, it's going to cost them more. There is no question. Think of national groups. Think of maybe we've had some groups go to Dallas. We've had some groups go to, I think, Tennessee, Denver. The hotel expenses have now increased for those groups because unvaccinated students, have to have a single room.
Okay.
And now one of the things I'm asking for is, would they amend it to where unvaccinated students could share a room and vaccinated students could share a room? And then that way I'm not creating something. Now we're also taking another, I'm going to call it COVID safe practice. There's no limitation that says, right now there's no limitation that says vaccinated students, typically we put 4 students in a room, 2 in a bed. Right now every student gets their own bed as a COVID safe practice. We don't have to do that, but I think that's wise, and I think Ms. Cregan would salute that. And I kind of would, again, like them to adjust to where unvaccinated could have their own bed. And I think we can reasonably figure out a way to get through this year and make sure our students can participate.
So am I hearing correctly that vaccinated students get their own bed, so that means we're putting two to a room?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I did consult some neighboring districts, and that's exactly what they're doing, and I'm like, okay, so they're, while, because I was like, well, how fair is that vaccinated get to be 4 at a room, and then in the effort to, so I appreciate in the effort to mitigate that, you're putting 2, and so that's very important, yeah. And then, so here's my comments. I really appreciate you having a change of heart, sir, because I was ready to like, nah, because, you know, that is a personal choice whether to be vaccinated or unvaccinated. And as children, you know, are, as long as they're 18, not 18 years or older, they don't get to decide on their own, you know, and so the parents have the right to say yay or nay or whatever. And to me, my personal opinion, solely my personal, I'm not speaking on the behalf of the board, is that to me, my eyes, that would be literally segregating kids and literally discrimination of unvaccinated children and families. And I would never want that for any of our kids. So no kid should ever have to pay out of their own pocket to assist school events, like, and because after all, we are taxpayers as parents. And, you know, I was thinking, are we ready for lawsuits from unvaccinated families? Plus, that would put also pressure on unvaccinated families of athletes to make the choice, you know, and having the pressure of their children to say, Mom, Dad, I have to be vaccinated because they're not gonna let me travel if I'm not. So I would not want us to play into the political game that society is making us do at this time. So I really appreciate that, sir. I think that's it. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Where's my agenda? Okay, so let me see. So that's it. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion. Do we adjourn?
Mr. Cano has made a motion to adjourn. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
Roll call is required here? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Good evening.